In the shadows of an ancient, cursed mansion, a small boy stands alone, surrounded by motionless bodies. Pain and rage distort his young face, and his eyes, glowing with a blood-red light, reflect a silent cry of despair. Under the cold light of the crescent moon, mysterious figures gather as if awaiting something inevitable, while the girl, fallen on her knees, only silently watches this eerie ritual. A new force, dark and powerful, promises protection, and the child who reaches out may be setting out on a path of no return. A cold blue gaze, hidden in the shadows of a hood, conceals ancient wisdom and a ruthless will. A whirlpool of darkness draws him into the abyss, while the pale faces of the past look on at the inevitable plunge. Through pain and battle, through the fury of beasts and the despair of man, a warrior is born who can challenge any shadow. His eyes, now glowing a mystical purple, are filled with determination and mystery, and the darkness around him only emphasizes his new nature. A merciless sentence is passed upon anyone who dares to stand in their way, and tears of blood become the final manifestation of their fear. The cold gaze from under the peak of the cap foreshadows trouble, and drops of blood in the background hint at a recent massacre. His presence creates panic and terror, as the dark aura forces even the most resilient to fall to their knees from the unbearable pressure. But the world is conquered, and now, sitting on the throne with the queen, Ye Cheng can finally allow himself a slight grin, enjoying his victory. However, even the greatest heroes sometimes need a break, returning to the everyday world where cars glide through the streets and people rush about their business. And then, at the most ordinary moment, a slight gesture and a call suddenly disturb the serenity, attracting the attention of a stranger. Turning around, she meets the stranger's gaze, and her blue eyes reflect a slight surprise mixed with a question. Ye Cheng seems a little embarrassed, but his determination does not weaken as he tries to approach this mysterious lady. However, his next question is so unexpected that it makes her eyes widen in shock and confusion. The frantic search for napkins and muttering about forgetting only adds to the comical nature of the situation, while Yi Cheng seems to be barely holding back a smile. But instead of the expected apology or explanation, her angry cry about a dirty pervert and a decisive refusal ruin all his plans. And here he is, the all-powerful Ye Cheng, standing in complete bewilderment as his usual confidence cracks in the face of such an unexpected turn of events. Ye Cheng tries to come to terms with the reaction, convincing himself that mortals are incapable of understanding his path, which is full of secrets and hidden powers. But his usual confidence begins to crack when fragments of the past appear before his inner eye, and he plunges into memories. He recalls a carefree childhood, the happy Yi family from Zhangzhen, where love reigned despite the ridicule of his peers. This idyll was destroyed by his father's act of kindness, who saved a strange girl and incurred the wrath of a powerful man. And so, just a few days later, the villa where the family banquet was taking place turned into the scene of a bloody massacre. Young Ye Cheng, still just a boy, was broken by the sight of the lifeless bodies of his parents and loved ones. Every motionless hand, every cold face of his relatives was imprinted in his memory with unbearable pain and despair. The most terrible thing was that familiar faces, former friends of my father, even his beloved uncle, stood to the side, silently watching the death. The child's eyes were filled with rage mixed with grief, and an indomitable thirst for revenge was born in Yi Cheng's broken heart. With a broken blade in his hand, he rushed at the faceless enemy, but his despair was in vain, the weapon shattered into pieces. The powerful killer merely mocked him, demonstrating his absolute power over the boy's fate. In the cold, shining eyes of the enemy, one could read only contempt, promising a long and painful agony. Yi Cheng was thrown into the cursed waters of Dongzhan to be torn apart by monsters in order to wipe him off the face of the earth. But fate had other plans for him. Saved by a mysterious master, he was taken to Kunlun, where he gained incredible powers. And now, years later, he returns with the sole purpose of finishing what he started and avenging his family. Suddenly, his determination flares up and a powerful aura engulfs Ye Cheng, paralyzing everyone around him in his furious readiness to act. But then his eyes widen in disbelief as he realizes something unexpected is happening. The sudden impulse dissipates, leaving him confused, while those around him begin to come to their senses, wondering what just happened. Ye Cheng hears the echoes of their bewilderment and understands that this is not the time for revelations, because another, no less important matter awaits him. Huamei Headquarters Group, a colossal corporation in Zhangzhen, where another test awaits him. Ye Cheng recalls the old man's words. The mission is not only about salvation, but also about the ancient power of the sleeping dragon dormant within Xiaoru Shu. Huamei's colossal headquarters group, Ye Cheng wonders if this Xiaoru Shu could be that granddaughter. He takes a step towards his destiny, but a sharp shout, as if foreshadowing obstacles, stops him on the threshold. With a disarming smile, Ye Cheng addresses the guards, seeking a meeting with the mysterious Xiaoru Oshue. But his path is blocked by strict guards, who declare that it is impossible to enter without proper permission. For a moment, a slight look of confusion crossed Ye Chen's face, but his determination did not leave him. With a grin, he suggests that since that's the case, he'll wait for his target comfortably right on the sofa in the foyer. His insolence only adds fuel to the fire. The guards demand that he leave immediately, insulting and humiliating him. Under the shadow of his cap's visor, his gaze becomes impenetrable, foreshadowing a storm. The next moment, the space around him is distorted, shrouded in a mysterious glow, like lightning. The guards were thrown back, as if by an invisible force, but Ye Cheng remains standing unmoved. Horror freezes in the eyes of the defeated. They realize that only by a miracle did they escape certain death. He speaks dismissively of unqualified employees, while chaos and confusion reign all around. As calmly as if he were the owner of this place, Ye Cheng sat down on the soft sofa, radiating calm confidence. Meanwhile, an ominous shadow appears around the fallen guards, distorting the space and causing horror. While the others were screaming in horror, "What's going on?" Ye Cheng just watched without showing any emotion. Another surge of tension as a Special Forces squad bursts into the hall, their shields aimed directly at Ye Cheng. In response to the threat, a barely noticeable but very self-confident grin touches his lips. A respectable man approaches him, arrogantly asking about the possible consequences of his intrusion. But Ye Cheng is adamant. His eyes flash an ominous purple and his voice turns cold, foreshadowing that no one will stand in his way. The man, trying to defuse the situation, delicately informs Ye Cheng that Madame Xiao is not at home. Ye Cheng, with slight bewilderment, as if believing it, humbly says that then nothing can be done. But then, changing tactics, he confidently declares that he can sit with them all day, which shocks his interlocutor. The man's thoughts race in panic. He can't allow the dangerous stranger to stay, otherwise he will lose his job, but he is also unable to resist him. Unable to bear the tension, he abruptly orders his men to seize Ye Cheng. A sudden cry of despair echoes down the corridor, "Stop!" causing everyone to freeze. Ye Cheng, unperturbed, only slightly raised his head, his gaze calm. All eyes are drawn to the graceful figure that appears in the doorway, radiating undeniable authority. It's Director Song Yi-song, and she looks ahead confidently, declaring that she will handle what's happening herself. Admiring sighs are heard among the crowd of office workers, accompanied by stories of her rare beauty. Her appearance sparkles like a precious stone, and only the president himself can compare with her in grandeur. The manager tries to warn the director about the danger, but she only waves it off, showing that the situation is under her control. Song Yi-song approaches Ye Cheng, her voice, although calm, carrying a commanding tone, asking how she can help him. Ye Cheng looks at her, startled, and a hint of recognition crosses his face. He says her name, Song Yi, the name of the one he could not forget for 5 long years. Fragments of memories flash before my eyes. A carefree childhood, a school desk, their unbreakable friendship, interrupted by the move to middle school. Then there was the sealed house, news of which spread throughout the city, leaving behind a trail of secrets. And in these memories, a sinister grin flickers, belonging to someone's shadow, hidden in the past. This city, full of cold lines and silent testimonies, held a lot of pain within itself. Young Song Yi stands at the tombstone of her parents, cremated after the tragedy, and even then, an inhuman resilience was being forged in her fragile soul. But today her image is reflected in the eyes of someone who seemed to only vaguely remember the past. Ye Cheng, taken aback by this encounter, nervously tried to find words. She, with a charming smile, offered her help, as if there had been no history between them. His excuses about "I saw it somewhere" sounded ridiculous and revealed confusion. And she, with a slight laugh, gently reproached him for being old-fashioned, not knowing how complex their relationship was. Then, with an elegant gesture, she withdrew, leaving him standing alone, lost in thought. Ye Cheng watched her go thoughtfully, realizing how much this woman had changed. And it wasn't just her appearance, but something elusive that made her so attractive. But beneath that thoughtfulness there was something else. A dangerous fire flashed in his eyes, and his plans seemed to change. A sharp click of the key fob opened the car doors, as if inviting fate to enter. Song Yi, unsuspecting, walked up to the car and her graceful figure slid into the driver's seat. However, something in the atmosphere changed when she felt someone's invisible presence. Something impossible was reflected in the rearview mirror, and a chilling horror pierced her to the depths of her soul. Ye Chung sat at the back, grinning smugly like a predator who had caught his prey. How did you end up here? Her voice trembled with bewilderment and involuntary fear. Song Yi pulled herself together, trying to hide her panic, and resolutely asked about his intentions. Yi Cheng just smiled as if nothing had happened and asked for an innocent ride with the wind in his hair. She tried to confront him, but he just brushed the question aside, maintaining his enigmatic smile. Every gesture, every word Yi Cheng said only increased her suspicions, making her feel like she was about to have a premonition of trouble. Then Ye Chung, his eyes blazing with inner strength, uttered a prophecy. A blackened soul and a trace of blood are the harbingers of great events, and this must not be allowed to happen. But the prophecy was not empty words. It demanded action, and the path to it lay through a noisy world where power and intrigue were intertwined. In the heart of the city, within the glittering walls of the Longhua Hotel, those who moved the threads of fate gathered, anticipating an evening full of meaningful encounters. And then she appeared, a mysterious lady in black whose presence made the air around her vibrate, and every step was like a challenge, which Ye Cheng followed effortlessly. Her majestic appearance and stunning figure instantly became the subject of admiring whispers. It's Ms. Sun, the director of Huamei. But they were no less heatedly discussing her companion. What kind of guy did she bring? We've never seen her with a man before, let alone one like him. Ignoring the gossip, the lady pointed authoritatively to an empty table, inviting Ye Chen to sit down. He answered her with his signature, slightly cheeky smile, as if to say, "No problem, I'm ready for any challenge this world throws at me." However, their peace didn't last long. Business sharks immediately flocked to them, vying with each other to introduce themselves and offer their services, their words flowing like a river, while Yi Cheng watched with interest. Madame Sun accepted the compliments gracefully, maintaining her impeccable dignity, but Ye Cheng's gaze detected a subtle tension. Soon the flow of proposals became insistent, and several influential figures, moving closer, demanded to raise their glasses, insistently offering her a toast to success. The tension hung in the air, and a glass extended in her direction seemed not a request, but a silent command. Then Ye Cheng stepped forward, as if wanting to test the limits of their insolence, and defiantly asked how many more glasses he had to drink. Such impudence sparked a wave of indignation. "Who are you, you poor wretch? Who even let you in here? What right do you have to say that?" In response to the insult, a cold grin flashed across Ye Cheng's face, foreshadowing a quick retribution for his thoughtless words. Madame Sun, sensing something was wrong, rushed to intervene, trying to prevent the inevitable conflict by taking matters into her own hands. With elegant restraint, she explained that she was not a very good drinker and asked to be allowed to limit herself to just one sip, expressing her hope for their understanding. And, as if by magic, her charm immediately disarmed the impudent men, making them forget about everything except her beauty. "One sip," Yi Cheng said sarcastically, mocking the easy surrender. But one of the men, having recovered from his momentary charm, still cast an arrogant glance at Ye Cheng, holding a bottle in his hand, as if hinting at a continuation. Madame Sun, sensing the approaching storm, realized with horror that her attempt to resolve the conflict had only delayed the inevitable, and anxiously called out to Ye Cheng. The words of the men whispering in the distance foreshadowed new troubles, recalling the previous incident with wine and past rage. The arrogant fellow with a bottle in his hand, whispering something to Madame Sun, was clearly plotting a new game of redemption. His grin was filled with malice, and his words echoed in the tense air like an icy command. Mrs. Sun gave him a false smile, her mind going back to that evening when, fearing a trick, she had spilled the drink on him. He pulled her towards him forcefully, pushing her towards the bottle and caustically hinting that it was time for her to stop acting up. Horror was reflected in her eyes, and thoughts of innocent victims and disgust at the swill flashed through her head. Rage flared in his eyes. He lashed out at her with abuse, demanding immediate obedience, because even the flawless one drinks. Tears blurred her vision as she gripped the bottle tighter, realizing the insignificance of her position in front of such a powerful man. He towered over her, enjoying her humiliation, declaring that before him, the heir to a powerful clan, she was just a speck of dust. But then suddenly, like lightning, a hand appeared, snatching the bottle from her weakened fingers. Ye Chung, appearing out of nowhere, suddenly snatched the bottle, leaving everyone speechless and causing angry cries. In the reflection of someone else's bloodshot eyes, the bottle in Ye Chung's hand shone, foreshadowing a storm. A crushing blow, and the bottle, shattering into pieces, fell on the aggressor's head. A cry of pain echoed through the hall as the defeated man fell to his knees, with Ye Chung standing over him, unperturbed. A crimson trickle ran down his face, mixing with tears of horror and pain, forcing a pitiful groan out of him. Ye Cheng stood beside the stunned Madam's son like a protector, coldly questioning his right to dictate his will. A gasp of horror went through the crowd as the shocked guests recognized the young man as the one whose name they had been whispering with apprehension. His family is influential, but the worst thing is that it includes an ancient warrior, flashed through the mind of one of the frightened witnesses. Through the general rustle, a prediction of inevitable retribution for insolence against such a powerful clan seeped through. But there was also someone who, looking at the alarmed Madam Sun, spoke of provocation, as if justifying what had happened. A prophecy of inevitable retribution for insolence against such a powerful clan filtered through the general murmur. But someone, looking at the alarmed lady's son, spoke of provocation, as if justifying what had happened. His cries of ruined reputation were cut short by a sharp blow that left him choking on his own anger. The pupil, dilated with horror, reflected the awareness of his own insignificance and the threat hanging over him. Like a sack of bones, he fell to his knees, trying to protect himself from the invisible force that had frozen his movements. But Ye Cheng's voice sounded like a sentence, and his eyes, blazing with a bloody light, promised inevitable punishment. Fear and pain merged on his face as he felt a steel grip on his hair. Yi Cheng's mocking smile was the last thing he saw before the realization of hopelessness washed over him like a wave. And then, as if on cue, an impressive retinue entered the hall, led by a man whose gaze radiated an unyielding will. It was he, Chuen Zhengguo, the head of the clan, whose appearance foreshadowed only one thing: judgment. He advanced, surrounded by his men, and every step he took echoed in the silence of the hall. His voice was thick with blatant menace, and the aura blazing around him spoke of boundless rage. The spectators, realizing the full scale of what was happening, began to whisper, not understanding the reason for such a sudden appearance. Those around him felt the tension, realizing that before them stood not just the head of the clan, but also, perhaps, a legendary warrior. The man fell to his knees and begged for salvation, while Madame Sun only looked in horror at the approaching figure. Fear gripped her heart with an icy grip, and she felt the whole world crumbling around her. But Ye Cheng, not at all embarrassed, merely nodded with a cheeky smile, as if accepting the challenge. His gaze, piercing and cold, turned to Zheng Guo, trying to figure out his true strength. Meanwhile, the wounded man, forgetting his pride, threw himself at the feet of Chuen Zhongguo, clinging to him as his last hope. But it wasn't just the clan leader who attracted attention. Next to him stood an old man, shrouded in a mystical aura, like an ancient martial arts master. The wounded man, clinging to Chuen Zhengguo, began to complain hysterically, demanding retribution for his dishonor. But the head of the clan, angered by the shamelessness of his subordinate, ordered him to shut up and get away. But the wounded man, shocked by this turn of events, could only squeeze out, "What?" Chuen Zhongguo's face was filled with steely contempt, while the old man stood unwaveringly beside him. Only his gaze was full of hidden depths. Ye Cheng, on the other hand, with a completely unperturbed expression, even with a slight challenge, wondered about the motives of this ancient warrior. After all, according to the old man himself, he had already lost everything except his reputation, which he was now ready to defend at any cost. Chuen Zhongguo, however, with a mischievous grin, suggested that Ye Cheng show a kind heart and spare the old man so long as he did not lose his life. The old man, surrounded by a mysterious glow, warned Ye Cheng that it would not be easy to cope with such power at such a young age, foreshadowing the coming disaster. But Ye Cheng, smiling, only assured the girl that he could handle it, accepting the challenge with a little nonchalance. And, at that moment, the old man, looking at the guy, remembered his past mistakes, those with whom he had once thoughtlessly gotten involved. A determined fire flashed in Ye Chen's eyes, foreshadowing the coming clash. Suddenly, the elder rushed towards Ye Cheng like a ghost, surrounded by blue energy, his speed unimaginable. A moment later, he had almost caught up with the guy, whose calm seemed unshakable. The old man launched a treacherous strike, his clawed fingers aiming at Ye Cheng, intending to grab or pierce. The girl, amazed by the speed of the attack, asked in bewilderment how this could have happened, and whether it was really that same ancient warrior in front of them. Ye Cheng, in response to her question, only smirked, asking rhetorically whether such a fighter was too valuable a gift. Rage overwhelmed the old man. His face twisted into a grimace of rage. He shouted, "Kid! Now you will definitely die," he roared, rushing into the attack together with his double, surrounded by an ominous blue glow. But Ye Cheng, whose eyes flashed with an ominous red light, was prepared. With lightning speed, he struck back, piercing the old man with purple energy, sending him flying. The old man flew to the side, landing heavily, and Ye Cheng noted with a slight mockery his sneaky tactic of using a sneak attack instead of a fair fight. The spectators, including the girl, were shocked by what they saw, and Ye Chung, looking at the defeated opponent, calmly asked, "Who's next?" his gaze full of unwavering strength. Shock froze on everyone's faces. The old man, young enough to be Ye Cheng's grandson, had been defeated. How could this have happened? The defeated old man himself, not believing his eyes, asks in a trembling voice, "Who are you?" And Ye Cheng, shrouded in an aura of power, only coldly asks, "Who am I?" And without waiting for an answer, he delivers a crushing blow, a wave of force rolling through the hall, throwing back everyone who dared to approach. The old man, writhing in unbearable pain, screams, blood gushing from his mouth, his eyes empty and his body pierced by discharges of unknown energy. Those who were standing on their feet just a minute ago are now covering their ears, suffering from an invisible blow, trying to understand what kind of hell is going on around them. Complete disorientation and fear gripped everyone who witnessed this unimaginable display of force. Yi Cheng is as still as a rock, his gaze fixed on Chen Zhengguo, who now inspires nothing but pity. With a devilish grin, Yi Cheng offers, "Kind heart, will you leave your body?" The old man, overcome with terror, is speechless, sensing the ominous aura emanating from the boy. The anger of ancient enmity pierces Ye Cheng, for the Ye family has hated the Zhen clan for centuries, and revenge must be served coldly. The leader of the bodyguards, having come to his senses, desperately tries to bring his men to their senses, but fear has paralyzed them, turning them into statues. "Forward, forward!" shout those willing to risk their lives for a job and a raise, rushing at one seemingly unarmed man. "There's only one of him," echoes throughout the hall as an entire army of bodyguards, driven by orders and their own bravado, rush towards Ye Cheng. But in the blink of an eye, Yi Cheng raised his fist, and a new wave of force sent the attackers flying like bowling pins, their attempts to attack pitiful. Amidst loud shouts and blows, glasses fly off and the bodyguards' legs lose their support, falling one after another. Yi Cheng stands among the fallen bodies, his silhouette unwavering, surrounded by fallen enemies who can no longer pose a threat. His eyes, like bottomless wells, reflect determination and ruthlessness, leaving no doubt about his power. The old man and his son fall to their knees, begging for mercy, their arrogance melting away into mere babble. "Is that how you started singing?" Yi Cheng snaps coldly. A grim smile distorts his face. One eye flashes red, and an ominous purple glow emanates from his hand. However, debts must be repaid. Thus unfolds the story of the city god of medicine, the one who came to repay old debts and change the world forever. But before Ye Cheng can make a decision, a special forces squad, led by a determined young woman, bursts into the room, her cry of "Stop it!" piercing the air, promising a new chapter in this drama. A police siren cuts through the silence, frozen in tension after what happened. The Special Forces captain, a young woman with a commanding gaze, orders Ye Chen to retreat, not understanding the depth of the conflict. Her gaze glides around the room, and for a moment it reflects confusion. What happened here? Ye Cheng, keeping his composure, watches Chen Zhengguo and his accomplice frozen in a humiliating pose. One of them, a certain Chen Zhengguo, sighs joyfully, confident that the arrival of law enforcement officers will save him from retribution. But Ye Cheng only looked at him mockingly, his eyes flashing with purple light, showing who the true ancient masters was here. The captain senses something is wrong. Ye Cheng's aura radiates a power capable of suppressing even the strongest. And then she notices an unconscious ancient warrior of the Chen family. His condition clearly indicates a brutal battle. What did this young man do that even such mighty fighters fell before him? Chen Zhengguo tries to lie and wriggle out of it, but Ye Cheng's grip only gets tighter. Ye Cheng doesn't let go of his victim, increasing the pressure, causing Chen Zhengguo to writhe in pain while his son calls for help. Seeing no other way out, the captain points her gun at Ye Cheng, demanding that he release the hostage or she will open fire. Yi Cheng only glances at her briefly, noting her status as a captain with a slight grin. "It's my personal business," he declares, ignoring the threat, while Chen Zhengguo's frightened son panics. "The police are obliged to intervene if this is an ordinary fight," the captain counters, her resolve unwavering. She stands surrounded by special forces with pistols pointed, ready for any development. "Oh, I don't think so," Ye Cheng replies, his eyes flashing purple again and a sly grin playing on his face. In one motion, he squeezes Chen Zhengguo's hand, and a powerful burst of energy shakes the air. And then, with an innocent smile, he declares that the poor guy is just having cramps, until a purple-haired girl appears next to him. The girl pulls his hand and asks him to stay, but Ye Cheng, confused, only looks at her questioningly. When the girl threatened to leave him over such a trifle, Yi Cheng only looked at her with bewilderment as she tried to get his attention. But she, without the slightest embarrassment, announces to her invisible pursuers that she has surrendered, tightly hugging the stunned Ye Chung. While Ye Chung, sitting on the floor, anxiously asks about what to do next, the girl confidently declares that she will take care of everything. She explains to him in detail that they need to go to the department and write a statement confirming their innocence. Ye Cheng just smirked, replying that he didn't care as he could leave at any moment. Meanwhile, the majestic towers of the Longhu Hotel rise up under the cover of night, guarding their dark secrets. Inside, in the office, a subordinate reports to the captain that the surveillance footage has been reviewed more than 10 times. And, except for one odd moment, all the other footage clearly shows that Ye Chung acted solely in self-defense. "What?" the captain only says briefly, her gaze becoming sharp and piercing. She tilts her head slightly, asking again, "Except for one? And what exactly is wrong with that one?" Frames flicker across the tablet screen, as if snatched from the flow of time, with unclear, distorted silhouettes. The officer continues. Chen Zhen brings in an old man who approaches Ye Cheng, and in the next frame, the old man falls. "Yes?" the captain breathes out, barely audibly, her brows furrowing slightly in confusion. They responded fairly quickly, but it seems someone managed to delete the most important part of the recording. Perhaps behind this guy, there is an unimaginable, almost supernatural power that can influence reality. After weighing all the facts, the captain makes a decision. Due to the lack of direct evidence, they will regard it as self-defense. And now they are back on the street, leaving the police station, and the girl raises her hands in victory, as if she had just won a battle. "Oh, and the weather is nice too," she exclaims joyfully, enjoying the moment of freedom and the warm day. Ye Chung, turning away, thoughtfully whispered the name to himself, Sun Yi. He realizes that Qin Zhen and his son still pose a serious threat to Sun Yi, and if he leaves, they will attack her again. Sun Yi, embarrassed, barely audibly uttered words of refusal, her cheeks burning. But then she gathers her courage and, smiling softly, invites Ye Chen to stay in her apartment, sparing him the cold night in the park. Ye Cheng, not missing the chance to tease her, hints at his insidious plans with a mischievous grin, causing even more embarrassment. In response to her awkward silence, he brushes her off sharply, but Sun Yi, frightened by his departure, tries to stop him in a panic, catching up with him at a hurried pace. Somewhere in the distance, under the cover of night, a patrol car races through the streets, and at the wheel is a female police officer whose thoughts are full of anxiety. A call appears on her screen, a signal that she is about to face something serious that requires immediate attention. She dials the number, turning to the only person she trusts completely, her brother. Meanwhile, against the backdrop of the harsh Ural Mountains, among the snow-capped peaks, an icy wind rages, foreshadowing trials to come. Far from civilization, in a lonely hut, he finds his refuge, his personal stronghold of peace and strength. Her brother, a mighty warrior with fiery red hair, pumps his muscles, thinking about his restless sister who chose a dangerous path. He grumbles that he is not a movie policeman to solve her endless problems, but concern for his sister overpowers his irritation. He sighs heavily and, reluctantly but decisively, opens his laptop, sensing that it won't be an easy night. On the screen is a recording of Ye Chung single-handedly subduing an entire group of bodyguards, causing the warrior to only chuckle contemptuously. But then his gaze freezes, pierced by the incredible speed and power of the young man's movements. "Is this an ancient warrior?" he whispers, but immediately dismisses the thought, realizing something much deeper. Before him is a true martial arts master, whose abilities go beyond the ordinary, and he demands that his sister immediately find out everything about him. Returning to Sun Yi and Ye Chen, we are transported to the luxurious Jianshen residential complex, where their temporary shelter awaits. Sun Yi, radiant after a refreshing bath, wearing a light robe, invites Ye Chung to follow her example. He nods to her, a mischievous glint in his eyes, agreeing to accept her hospitality, his plan beginning to come to fruition. This girl really doesn't suspect anything, Ye Chung thinks with a barely noticeable sly smile, enjoying his little game. Standing under the streams of water, Ye Chung washed not only his body but also his soul, trying to wash away the layers of the past. 5 years ago, when the teacher saved me, I considered it a blessing, flashed through his thoughts, leaving a bitter taste in his mouth. But the rescue soon turned into a monstrous nightmare when, without explanation, he was thrown into a cage with a hungry tiger. And, incredible as it may seem, he survived, winning his first bloody victory under the silent gaze of his savior. However, this was only the beginning of his painful path, only a prelude to an endless struggle. The teacher tempered him in the most dangerous places, throwing him to be torn apart by monsters and the elements. Every day was a challenge, every situation seemed hopeless, but he stubbornly clung to life. And every time, on the brink of despair, he survived, realizing that he only feels truly alive in the fire of anger and hatred. After all, this is the only way he can find everyone who was involved in that fateful banquet, in that night that changed everything. They will all pay. This oath burned within him with a furious, incinerating fire, granting monstrous strength. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, the mistress of the house deftly cut slices of watermelon, immersed in household thoughts. Her thoughts wandered from questions about a change of clothes for the guest to a sudden, alarming realization about her own. And then, like a bolt from the blue, her gaze fell on the laundry basket, where a lace bra was treacherously visible. Her face flushed, and her heart began to beat wildly, if only he didn't see it. Panic was growing, and she, smiling nervously, tried to stop him. Ye Chung, don't go out yet. I need to pick up one thing. But it was too late. Ye Chung, completely unperturbed, had already come out of the shower, asking what exactly she needed to take. She stepped back in embarrassment, barely able to utter something unintelligible, while he, having just wrapped himself in a towel, calmly asked her to wait while he got dressed. I'm coming out, she cried, retreating hastily, haltingly apologizing for the interruption. The door slammed behind her, leaving Ye Cheng somewhat confused. Hiding under the blanket, the girl told herself that she hadn't seen anything, and Ye Chung, standing at her door, only chuckled. It looks like she won't be coming out today. But he had no time for idle thoughts. The need to sort something out for real had arisen. And while in the distance, under the cover of night, the majestic mansion hid its dark secrets, Ye Chung prepared for decisive action. Inside, in the luxurious halls, two silhouettes stood frozen in tense anticipation, broken only by the quiet sound of the fountains. The eldest of them, the father, was shaking with hidden rage, his face distorted with anger and sticky sweat. The younger son, with his head bandaged, tried to calm his insane anger. But the old man just waved it off, raining down a stream of accusations on him for the wounded Ming Lao, calling him a worthless person. The son suggested calling someone for help, but the father just waved him off, disdaining someone's inaction. His eyes burned with a vengeful fire. He swore that the puppy would pay for what he had done. And then he ordered his son to go to Wuishan and call upon the grandfather, as if calling upon an ancient power. The son, grinning maliciously, was already imagining how he would break Ye Cheng's bones and how he would humiliate Sun right before his eyes. But suddenly, out of the darkness, another silhouette appeared on the terrace, silently observing their vile plans. Both men flinched, and a chilling fear crossed their faces when they realized who stood before them: Ye Cheng. Ye Chung, with a casual smile, offered to chat, causing his father to tremble and ask if he was going to kill them. In response, Ye Cheng only smiled mysteriously, his body beginning to be enveloped in an ominous purple glow. The junior nodded fearfully, trying to hold on to the remnants of his self-confidence as Ye Cheng's purple aura grew denser. And then a piercing scream burst from his chest as a powerful bolt of dark energy struck him, knocking him to his knees. Ye Cheng raised his hand, shrouded in a gloomy light, and his voice sounded cold. Do you think I can't kill a person? His smile widened as he suggested, Let's check it out then, and everything around him crackled with the power emanating from him. The father collapsed, sobbing and pleading that they had no complaints, but Ye Cheng only burst into a terrible laugh, mockingly echoing his words. A new stream of energy erupted from his palm as he called out to someone, Answer, Chen Zhengguo. Ye Chung furiously recalled the sinister banquet 5 years ago where his family had perished and demanded an answer from the shocked Chen Zhengguo. Horror distorted Zhengguo's face as he desperately tried to comprehend how Ye Cheng could have survived that bloody night. Caught in Ye Cheng's grip, Zhengguo screamed in terror, unable to understand how his victim had escaped certain death. With a devilish grin, Ye Cheng revealed his true identity, not an ancient warrior, but something far more powerful, the god of medicine himself. His words rang with contempt for everyone who was considered the pinnacle of power, because for him there were no barriers, be it martial arts masters or entire sects. With a crushing blow shrouded in purple light, Ye Chung toppled his opponent, asserting his undeniable might. Chen Zhengguo collapsed, immobilized, with symbols of total defeat swirling around him. At the same time, on the distant rocky peaks, a mighty old man with white hair, immersed in meditation, felt an alarming surge of energy. Suddenly, a sharp pain pierced him and he screamed, blood gushing from his mouth. The old man's face was distorted with rage and grief. He sensed Zhengguo's death and vowed to find the one who dared to encroach on his people. Zhen Yuanli, mad with anger, stood up, surrounded by a blue glow, and vowed to deal with the murderer mercilessly. Meanwhile, the world around was transformed, and the city's skyscrapers towered over the greenery, heralding new events. In one of the rooms, Ye Cheng, who was immersed in meditation, opened his eyes, and a golden energy like a dragon flared up around him. He exhaled slowly, and the fiery glow dissolved, leaving behind only a light breeze. While pondering, Ye Cheng noted that the local Xuansha aura was too weak, but he had to continue training to improve his strength. A shimmering crystal appeared in his hand, and his thoughts drifted to the upcoming anniversary of his parents' death. He had to visit them. Ye Cheng looked at the crystal thoughtfully, wondering what this mysterious object was and what significance it had. Upon closer inspection, ancient symbols resembling bloody writing appeared on the surface of the crystal. A drop of blood fell from his finger, rushing towards the crystal, and Yi Cheng wondered, what will happen next? The next moment, golden energy flashed around the crystal and Ye Cheng, sending him stunned by the sudden transformation. Ye Cheng's head felt dizzy, and the world around him floated in a foggy haze. Thus began his incredible journey, where ancient mysteries will intertwine with the modern world. But the flash of energy transported him not to the familiar reality, but to a dark, mystical place, resembling an ancient cemetery. He woke up in the middle of this silent crypt where every tombstone held its own forgotten story. His body ached with pain, his head was splitting, and a feeling of horror overcame him at the sight of numerous wounds. He jumped up, looking around, trying to understand what was happening and where he had ended up. His vision suddenly cleared, and he saw something that made his heart stop in his chest. The multitude of tombstones seemed to reach out to him, emitting a ghostly glow. Suddenly, blades erupted from the ground, surrounding him in a purple vortex of mystical energy. A voice coming from everywhere and nowhere pierced the air, accusing him of the audacity of invading the sacred cemetery of rebirth. The dark entity, embodied in the giant claw, mockingly warned that he was not even able to move a single stone. Fear pierced Ye Cheng as the ominous whisper offered him a condition for survival. But instead of giving in, he gathered all his will into a fist and challenged the multitude of nightmarish creatures, ordering them to disappear. Suddenly, he sat up in bed, waking up from this obsession in his own home. Heavy breathing tore at my chest, and my heart pounded wildly after the horror I had experienced. My head still hurt, but the bright light from the window announced the arrival of a new day. However, the nightmarish image did not leave him, forcing him to think about the words of the ghostly entity. He realized that the 100 tombstones in that cemetery meant the 100 powerful souls trapped there. Despite the fear he had experienced, a fire of determination flashed in his eyes, as if he was ready to accept this challenge. But reality persistently reminded him of itself, with a pleasant voice calling him to breakfast, and threw him away from his gloomy thoughts. Ye Cheng, as if awakening from a dream, quickly responded to the call, but the shadow of his thoughts still hovered over him. In the depths of his consciousness, a dark echo of the words he had heard lurked, the cemetery of rebirth. The cozy atmosphere of breakfast should have dispelled any anxiety, but the world around him had already changed. On the table, dishes prepared by a caring hand beckoned appetizingly, offering the moment of oblivion. Ye Cheng, trying to dispel his bad feelings, complimented her and expressed his admiration for her thoughtfulness. He even offered his services around the house, even to the point of warming the bed in winter, hinting at more. However, Sun Yi only smiled, countering his joke about heat with a practical remark about heated floors. Her slight reluctance continued with the announcement of strict conditions, rent, and household chores. Ye Cheng's words about the sudden lack of money made Sun Yi silently ask, was he really counting on her account? Without losing his composure, Ye Cheng quickly grabbed a napkin to jot down an idea. His hand slid quickly across the paper, and bold plans were already forming in his head. Sun Yi looked at the napkin with a slight puzzlement, on which was written, "Recipe for the elixir." Ye Cheng, his eyes shining, convinced her that this, albeit low-grade, recipe for an anti-aging product would easily cover all the expenses. But Sun Yi remained skeptical, doubting the demand for such a miracle in the modern market. Then Ye Cheng, with a sly smile, reminded her of Huamei's specialty Groupon Cosmetics, as if already anticipating success. The phone suddenly rang, and the words, "Director Shia," burst out of her mouth, causing Ye Cheng to tense up. The name Xiaohuo Shui instantly popped into his head, causing a whirlwind of memories or premonitions. After confirming the urgent meeting, Sun Yi hurriedly got ready, leaving Ye Cheng alone with his thoughts. She quickly said goodbye, leaving with a parting word of encouragement to find a real job instead of showing off about the elixirs. Left alone, Ye Cheng realized with a degree of bitterness how much the world had changed, neglecting even the knowledge that had been tested for millennia. Ye Chung, despite the disdain, did not give up, continuing his preaching about miraculous elixirs on the busy street. He assured passers-by that his potions could cure any ailment, and the price for a consultation would be an unimaginable 100,000 yuan. With a self-confident smile, he urged people not to skimp on their health, unaware of the reaction this would provoke. The crowd erupted in indignation, calling him a charlatan and threatening the police, but Ye Cheng merely shrugged, deciding to seek his fortune elsewhere. Suddenly, a loud voice rang out through the noise of the crowd, ordering everyone to move aside. It was the same girl who had recently mocked his frivolous work, but now her smile seemed much less sarcastic. A few minutes later, they were already standing in front of a luxurious mansion, which clearly belonged to high society. The girl proudly announced that this was her home, and even Ye Cheng couldn't hide his slight surprise at its size. He, without wasting any time, immediately assured her of the miraculous power of his elixirs, guaranteeing a cure for any illness. However, the girl only smiled mysteriously, explaining that her true motives were completely different from what he had assumed. Her mysterious smile and evasive answer only increased Ye Chung's bewilderment as he sensed something unusual was about to happen. Ye Chung, irritated by her evasiveness, declared that he did not intend to waste time on games, but the bank card with 100,000 yuan that the girl offered him instantly changed his mood. Forgetting his principles, he instantly turned into an obsequious servant, ready to follow her to the ends of the earth, which only earned her mild contempt. However, a shadow of sadness appeared on the girl's face when she began to talk about her father's serious illness. She was worried about her mother, who, having lost her beloved husband, could commit irreparable stupidities out of grief. So she suggested that Ye Chen pretend to be a demigod to take her father to the mountains for treatment, feigning hope of a cure. Ye Cheng seemed to realize the absurdity and naivety of her plan, although he didn't show it. But then a sly grin crossed his face as he realized that his presence here opened up entirely new possibilities. He confidently promised to carry out her task, and the girl noted with relief that in this case she would not have to call the police. Only after his consent did she add with an innocent air that she had left him no choice, since otherwise the police would have already been called. And so, they arrive at a majestic mansion, where the servants are already waiting for them, greeting the young mistress with relief and a bow. But the elderly housekeeper worries whether it is time for visits, to which the girl quickly replies that this guest has come to help. At this moment, their unusual agreement seems to be cemented by a look. She reminds Ye Chung of his given word, and he confirms his readiness by raising his thumb. Their path leads straight to the heart of the house, to the bedroom, where an old man lies in bed, and the girl's anxious cry, "Daddy!" pierces the silence. Tears are about to burst from her eyes, and her voice is filled with despair. This is bad, and Ye Cheng sees the full depth of her grief. His eyes, flashing with a mysterious purple light, reflect something more than simple human understanding. Yi Chung instantly realizes that this man is standing on the threshold of another world, and all the doctor's efforts have been in vain before the inevitable. A dark aura of illness envelops the sleeping old man, while his daughter, powerless before her fate, cowers in despair at the bedside. The deadly cold was already penetrating his chest, and Ye Cheng knew that once it reached his head, nothing could save this life. With a trembling voice, the girl reveals a tragic story. Her father, Shen Haiwa, was diagnosed with terminal lung cancer, and even the best foreign doctors were powerless, with the capital's doctor giving him only 1 day. She squeezes Ye Cheng's hand tightly, begging him to keep this a secret from his mother, and promising any payment for his silence and help. But at that very moment, like an evil fate, her mother enters the room, and a shocked cry of "Mom?" escapes the girl's lips. With pain in her eyes, her mother turns to her, demanding the truth about her father's last days, and her voice breaks, foreshadowing that without her husband, her own life will lose meaning. Betrayal? The girl looks at the doctor in fury because they agreed to keep this terrible news from her mother. But before this drama can fully unfold, Shen Menglong, the girl's brother, appears with a smug smile, declaring that he has already arranged everything, including a picturesque place for the funeral. The girl rushes to him in horror, trying to reason with him because her mother is already feeling bad, but he responds with feigned honesty. As if not noticing the grief, he continues, arguing that death will be a relief for his father, and not hiding his desire to quickly become the head of the family. The mother, unable to bear this cynicism, cries, lamenting that if her father leaves, she will not be able to live either, and her daughter tries to calm her down. Ye Chung watches this family drama closely, and his penetrating gaze reveals the whole truth, a thirst for inheritance that is even willing to eliminate his mother for a larger share. The enraged girl lashes out at her brother, accusing him of having money dictate his every word and declaring that their father will never allow him to become the head of the family. The sister, distraught by such a statement, threatens to rip her brother's mouth out if he dares to say something like that again. But before she can come to her senses, a powerful blow crushes her brother, knocking blood out of his nose and mouth. It was Ye Chung, whose fist was lightning fast, and mercilessly sent the presumptuous heir to the floor. The mother screams in horror, and the other witnesses of this brawl are shocked along with her. The assistant, apparently a doctor, angrily asks who dared to raise a hand against the future head of the Shen clan. In response, Ye Chung merely raised a finger, calmly naming his price for salvation, 10 million. There is an unshakable confidence in his gaze that has not wavered at all due to this family drama. While Ye Chang is looking around, a new round of argument between family members breaks out in the corridor. The mother doubtfully asks her daughter if Ye Cheng is really capable of helping, but she convinces her of his knowledge, although she is outraged by the amount requested. The son, having recovered from the blow, furiously accuses his sister of stupidity, believing that they invited the swindler only to interfere with his plans. He declares that if the old man dies, she won't get a penny, and the swindler will go to jail, since, in his opinion, the entire inheritance is already his. His daughter merely angrily orders him to shut up. Meanwhile, Yi Chung walks into the bedroom, where an old man lies motionless on a luxurious bed, locked in his death slumber. Above him, Ye Cheng raises his hands, and the room fills with a mystical glow, heralding the beginning of an ancient ritual. Mysterious energy flows through his fingers, and Ye Chung confidently declares that his knowledge of Tongchen medicine will pull the old man out of the ghost gate. He begins his ritual, and the space around him fills with a whirlwind of magical symbols and shadows, calling on heaven, earth, and spirits to turn darkness into light. The old man's tormented spirit, entangled in the same symbols, emerges from his body, and Ye Chung commanded him with an imperious voice, "Get up!" A dark, ominous smoke comes out of his mouth, as if death itself is trying to hold him back. The old man's spirit desperately struggles against the darkness looming over him, but Ye Chung sees that the dead qi has already enveloped him, blocking his meridians, and death seems inevitable. But hope still lives. Ye Chung feels a weak pulse, and his resolve strengthens, and the image of a powerful dragon appears behind him. Then Ye Cheng, channeling his power, revives the old man's yang pulse, powerfully commanding the spirit to rise. "Get up!" The dead qi that had been tormenting the old man's body burst out, and Ye Cheng deftly intercepted it with his shining hand, enclosing it in invisible shackles. Gathering all the power of his will, he clenches his fist, and the dark energy torn from the old man dissolves without a trace in his palm. The old man's body, like a puppet without strings, first rises up and then falls heavily onto the bed, as if the spirit had finally returned to its abode. Yi Chung felt deeply exhausted, as saving him proved far more difficult than destroying him, draining every drop of strength from him. But he stands firm, and his words sound confident. "It's okay, he'll wake up now. Now, please pay." The family, overcome with a wave of relief and happiness, cannot hold back their tears, their faces shining through a veil of amazement. The woman gratefully hands over the card, giving the password, her smile full of genuine joy and trust. However, Shen Menglong, the old man's son, bursts into the conversation, full of rage and disbelief, trying to convince his mother that it is hopeless, that the last stage of cancer is incurable. He grabs Ye Chen's hand, demanding to see the result first, because these 10 million did not come easy to him. Suddenly, Shen Menglong jerks his hand away, his face contorted in pain and astonishment. "What are you doing?" he blurts out. He falls to his knees, clutching his burning hand convulsively, his cries of, "It hurts! It hurts!" echoing throughout the room. Ye Chung, looking down, calmly announced, "I'll take the money. Come see me in 3 days." And his gaze, full of unspoken threat, makes it clear that if they don't come, the consequences will be serious. An enraged Shen Menglong demands his money back and threatens to call the police, while the doctor tries to calm him down, promising to sort things out. At this moment, the youngest daughter, frozen in shock, suddenly notices something incredible. "Daddy!" the women scream as the old man, who a minute ago was on the verge of death, slowly sits up in bed. Shen Menglong, his face distorted with horror, couldn't believe his eyes. "A ghost? What? You were in the last stage of cancer." The old man, who had come to his senses and had not yet fully realized what was happening, looked around in search of the doctor, who seemed to have disappeared. His wife and daughter rush to him, embracing him in tears of joy, and the old man thanks them, feeling incredibly better. Turning to Shen Menglong, the father praises him for all the good he has done, and the son, although stunned, is forced to agree, hiding his confusion. The old man's wrath falls upon Shen Menglong, depriving him of any hope of inheritance and condemning him for his treachery, while Menglong himself only reacts in stunned silence. His eyes burn with righteous indignation. Every wrinkle betrays deep disappointment in his own son, whose actions have crossed all boundaries. Meanwhile, away from his family drama, the majestic building of the Huame Group towers over the city, harboring other intrigues within its walls. There's a tense atmosphere in one of the conference rooms. An important forecast remains unchanged, and this doesn't bode well for the company. Things are not going well. While competitors are shining with innovations in oral care products, there is concern here, as without new cosmetic products, stagnation is inevitable. The young woman with purple hair sighs heavily, feeling the weight of responsibility and impending problems on her shoulders. Her gaze is directed into the distance. Her thoughts are racing in search of a solution, but so far only hopelessness is reflected in her eyes. Despite her apparent calm, her inner discomfort is evident. She feels extremely uneasy, as if something is bothering her. A light sweat appears through the mask of imperturbability, and the embarrassed look betrays growing anxiety. A sudden and strange itch distracts her, making her frown and feel even more uneasy, as if something is wrong. But then she notices something completely unexpected. A note from Ye Chung, hidden in the most intimate place, causing her shock, turning into an embarrassed smile. The note contains not only a message, but also an offer that could change the course of her fate, causing a blush on her cheeks and a thrill in her soul. At that moment, another woman appears behind her, narrowing her eyes suspiciously. She clearly suspected something, looking at her reaction. A cheeky smile plays on Suna's lips when she calls her by name and asks what kind of elixir recipe she is hiding. The tension mounts, words turn into open confrontation, and the two women's gazes lock in a silent battle. With a caustic grin, Suna throws accusations in the heroine's face, hinting at dishonest methods of obtaining information. The heroine's indignation reaches its limit. She rejects the dirty insinuations, emphasizing her difference from those who are ready to sell themselves. In response, Suna merely shrugs dismissively, intending to get rid of the garbage that she believes Ye Chang's note carries. Without a second's hesitation, she grabs the precious note and begins to mercilessly tear it into small pieces, tearing apart hopes. Shards of hope fall around the shocked heroine, frozen in horror at the destruction of a message so important to her. The heroine, whose hope was trampled, looks at her offender with inexpressible pain and rage. Her voice shakes the air, accusing him of arrogance and arbitrariness. Defending what is dear to her, she rushes into battle, despite the apparent insignificance of the subject of the dispute. Accustomed to such scenes, the rest only sighed in resignation, anticipating the continuation of the long-standing feud. Passions are running high, words are turning into threats, and hands are turning into tenacious claws, ready to tear not only paper but also faces. A desperate cry of "I'll kill you" meets a defiant "Go ahead, take a risk," bringing the conflict to a boiling point. A new figure bursts into this chaos, trying to stop the madness, warning of an upcoming meeting. But her voice is drowned out by the fiery aura of President Xia Yuaxu, whose appearance instantly calms the raging passions. Her angry eyes, full of cold flame, look at the frozen disputants, making them tremble with fear. Now that order has been restored, she gets down to business, reminding everyone of the purpose of the meeting, which everyone seemed to have forgotten. Her confident posture and silent anticipation make everyone in the room feel the weight of her words. The awkward silence is broken only by the intermittent attempts of some to start a conversation, afraid of making a mistake. The loud slam of a foot on the floor cuts off any hesitation, demanding an immediate response. Xia Yuosho directly declares that stagnation is unacceptable, challenging the R&D department. The subordinate tries to justify himself by citing fierce competition and the exhaustion of all formulas, even ancient ones. But the president only looks at him with undisguised skepticism, not accepting such explanations. She is already familiar with these excuses, and she is not going to put up with inaction demanding results. She recalls the difficulties, the struggle for her company, and the marriage that her parents once refused. Could she, who had been through so much, really just give up? "You're all just concerned with the formula for beauty," she declares. Then her gaze falls on Director Song, and a sparkle flashes in her eyes as she mentions something interesting, a certain Yan Dan formula. His eyes light up as he imagines saving the company, because this recipe is their only chance. The blonde looks at Song Yi hopefully, longing for confirmation that salvation is in her hands. But Song Yi sheepishly admits that this is not her merit, but only the handwriting of her friend. Impatience grows, and the demand to show the recipe sounds like an order on which everything depends. And so, scraps of paper appear on the table, and an embarrassed voice tries to justify itself, declaring that this is just a ridiculous joke. Song Yi, clearly upset, clutches her heart as she looks at these scraps, a symbol of the collapse of hopes. A sense of bewilderment hangs in the air. Could it really be that the priceless formula designed to save the company was simply written on a napkin? But one of those present, with a sly smile, sees this only as confirmation of her rightness, playing along with the general wave of disappointment. The director, however, suddenly interrupts the general commotion, his gaze fixed on one of the scraps. A sparkle flashes in his eyes as he examines the tiny scrap, uttering only one word: recipe. And so, while the fate of the recipe hangs in the balance, we briefly plunge into a world where ambitions and secrets collide. Huame Building Group keeps many secrets, and today one of them is about to be revealed. Suddenly, director Song erupts in rage, accusing Song Yi of destroying the company's only salvation. Poor Song Yi, horrified by what was happening, only babbled that she knew nothing about the value of these papers. The director's anger grows, and he gives Song Yi a harsh sentence, stripping her of her position and banishing her from the courtroom. The domineering Mrs. Xia adds fuel to the fire by threatening Song Yi with criminal liability if the recipe is not restored. Song Yi desperately tries to justify herself, assuring that it was not an accident, but a ridiculous mistake. But her words are drowned out by the general indignation. Director Song, holding the fragment in his hands, suddenly realizes the true value of what he has found. It is a piece of the company's first but unfinished recipe, and its restoration promises a breakthrough. In an instant, the atmosphere changes. Now everyone rushes to help Director Song put together the scattered pieces, because this formula is their only chance of success. But then shock and disbelief set in. Did Song Yi really have that very recipe in her hands, and she destroyed it out of ignorance? This terrible truth stuns everyone. Under pressure from remorse, Director Song bitterly admits that the saving formula was lost due to her own carelessness. And then comes the harsh punishment. She is sent to the purchasing department, where she will be looked after, a humiliating expulsion. Soon, night envelops the city, and the events of the day leave a deep mark on the hearts of the heroes. Returning home, Song Yi finds that Ye Chung is gone, and the emptiness of the room only adds to her confusion. Her thoughts return once again to the incredible truth. The recipe she so carelessly destroyed turned out to be real. She sinks into thought, tormented by the question, will he, the one who could fix everything, return? The image of Ye Chang comes to mind. His carelessness in handling this priceless recipe is both astonishing and admirable. But then a disturbing thought arises that could change everything. Could he really be the master of the world? And what would happen if she accidentally revealed his true identity? Suddenly, as if out of nowhere, a hand appears, interrupting her thoughts. Ye Cheng himself, with a straight face, catches Song Yi off guard, her face contorted with a mixture of shock and surprise. He says he returned recently after hearing her call, which only adds to her confusion. Awkwardness hangs in the air as they sit on the couch, and Song Yi tries to collect her thoughts. Ye Chung, sensing her anxiety, tries to change the conversation to everyday matters, avoiding looking her in the eyes. But Song Yi, gathering all her courage, begins to apologize for the messed-up formula, trying to explain her mistake. He cuts her off abruptly, shouting, "Note!" as if he had remembered something important, which makes Song Yi fall silent. Ye Chung, feigning fatigue, suggests that she take a rest, although Song Yi has not yet finished her story, feeling misunderstood. With a slight smirk, Ye Cheng states that he is as tired as a dog, but if she asks him like a man, he will consider helping. Outraged by this treatment, Song Yi threatens to call the police, her cheeks burning with indignation. Suddenly, she changes tactics, reminding Ye Cheng of Madame Xia Qianshui, who, by a strange coincidence, also wishes to see him. Outraged by such impudence, Ye Cheng orders Song Yi to remove that disgust from his face and states that he is too busy. But Song Yi doesn't give in, sarcastically reminding him of his recent quarrel with the guards for the sake of meeting Xia Qianshui, highlighting his hypocrisy. Ye Chung, unperturbed, simply waves his hand, sarcastically remarking that yesterday his love was ignored, and today he prefers to be unapproachable. Song Yi, as if catching an invisible thread, smiled mysteriously. Not bad, if so, then tomorrow. However, Ye Chung abruptly cuts her off, insisting that Madame Xia Qianshui should contact him herself, as he is not in the mood to go to her. And to Song Yi's complete amazement, he simply announces that he's going to bed and will talk tomorrow, slamming the door right in her face. In the luxurious apartment, Xia Qianshui impatiently asks Song Yi on the phone how her conversation with Ye Cheng ended. Hearing the answer, Mrs. Xia Qianshui asked in surprise, "What, should I contact him myself?" With a slight grin, she thoughtfully replies that she will think about it, but for now, she instructs Song Yi to keep an eye on the impudent guy. A thin, barely noticeable smile plays on her lips, revealing hidden interest. Interesting. Leaning back in his chair, Xia Qianshui reflects on Ye Cheng's behavior. First, he made a scene at registration, and now this. Curiosity and awareness flash in her turquoise eyes. What an unusual young man. Meanwhile, Ye Cheng, having left the hotel walls, stands in front of an imposing building that exudes ancient wisdom. He looks around with undisguised surprise. This is a pharmacy. It is here, among ancient recipes and mysterious potions, that a new chapter in the history of the city god of medicine begins. When he goes inside, he sees a long line and decides that it's time to take a look around. His gaze glides over the interior details. Something in the atmosphere of this place catches his attention. His gaze is drawn to a majestic painting of a tiger, and Ye Cheng says thoughtfully, an interesting painting. A slight smile touches his lips, foreshadowing new discoveries and, perhaps, new adventures. Off to the side, a man looked at Ye Cheng with displeasure, mentally cursing. Where did this bug come from? Jishuan, with eyes full of righteous anger, cannot believe that their family heirloom was called a fake. She desperately cries out to her grandfather, reminding him that such a valuable item was acquired in the capital itself. Yi Cheng just smirked, casually stating that this only proved their limited understanding, and grandfather Kirui was stunned by such audacity. With a hint of mockery, he continues, claiming that the forgery was masterfully done, meaning there is nothing stopping them from continuing to mislead people. Ye Cheng sighs with undisguised disappointment. His hopes of finding something genuine have been dashed. Jishuan's clenched teeth betrayed the rage boiling within her. She longs to teach the impudent man a lesson, but Qishui, foreseeing danger, tries to restrain his granddaughter, reminding him of his ordinary origin. Ye Cheng only lets out a mysterious, as if inviting her to a fight. An invisible force erupts from beneath her foot, shaking the air around her. She soars into the air, enveloped in a mystical glow, her grandfather horrified to realize that Jishuan is about to break ancient taboos by using powerful martial arts against a mere mortal. However, Ye Cheng, with incredible ease, stops her attack with just one hand, asking with an indifferent look, "Is that all?" Jishuan's face contorted in shock. Her signature move of knocking down 2 sandbags was completely useless. Yi Cheng, grabbing her ankle, mockingly asks if she has calmed down, and Jishuan, blushing with shame and anger, demands that she be released immediately, calling her a pervert. Her face expresses complete embarrassment and humiliation, the likes of which she has never experienced before. Finally, Jishuan lost her balance and fell to the floor, and Grandpa Kirui could finally breathe a sigh of relief, calling her name. Yi Cheng, having regained his normal appearance, condescendingly acknowledged her ancient skills, immediately discounting them with a condescending smirk. Jishuan's eyes flash with anger again, his words only adding fuel to the fire of her wounded pride. She, without holding back, orders him to get out in a rage if he doesn't like something. Grandfather Qishui tries to reason with his granddaughter again, but she stubbornly resists, refusing to give in. A shocked Kirui demands an answer, and Ye Cheng, with a subtle threat in his voice, hints at the true power he had been holding back. Filled with rage, Qishui shouts that the incident was just an accident caused by his intolerable behavior. Yi Cheng bowed his head with a sly smile on his lips, his short "yes" sounding like a challenge that left no doubt. An enraged Qi Rui, feeling challenged, allows her Qi to burst forth, enveloping herself in an ominous purple halo. Ye Cheng, as if playing with her, suggests they repeat the duel, but this time at full strength, and his words make the air sparkle. Grandfather Kirui, astonished by the power of his aura, falls to his knees, unable to believe such incredible superiority. The granddaughter, terrified to the depths of her soul, urges her grandfather to run, realizing that before them stands something much more than just a man. Grandfather, humbled, bows before Ye Cheng, apologizing for Kirui's foolish actions and acknowledging his greatness. He sternly orders her to apologize immediately, but she only blinks her eyes in confusion, not fully understanding the seriousness of the moment. Ye Cheng glanced around the majestic hall where an ancient scroll with a tiger hung on the wall and nodded graciously, accepting the apology. He raises his hand and streams of qi begin to flow through it, as if heralding the revelation of a deep secret. The sudden release of energy causes everyone to flinch, revealing the true extent of his incredible abilities. With a smug smile, Ye Cheng declares that it will not be difficult for him to complete such a complex list, because he is a true master of his craft. The old man, amazed, looks at the boy with awe, realizing that he is seeing something out of the ordinary. The granddaughter, as if obediently submitting to the will of fate, hands Ye Chung carefully tied packages containing valuable ingredients. Ye Chung accepts them, playfully thanking Miss Ju, whose face is still distorted with undisguised irritation. With a sly smile, he adds that he wouldn't mind receiving such parcels personally from her hands, continuing to tease. The girl, barely containing her growing anger, only casts a withering glance at him, unable to find words. Ye Cheng, enjoying her reaction, makes another joke, thanking her grandfather for the favor, which further infuriates Kirui. Grandfather Chishui tries to reason with his granddaughter, reminding her that this guy's skill surpasses even their respected teacher. Ye Chung, smiling as he takes out his bank card, declares that with his new fortune, he has become accustomed to paying for his own services, demonstrating generosity and independence. Ye Chung, having said goodbye, promises to return in a couple of days, while grandfather Kirui waves him off, and his granddaughter looks indignantly at the departing guy. Grandfather Kirui, with a hint of anxiety, says Ye Cheng's name, hinting at his family background, which causes confusion in his granddaughter, who does not understand why he is so famous. A look of deep concern appears on his face, foreshadowing that the coming times will be full of anxiety. Meanwhile, Ye Cheng walks through the busy streets, his thoughts taking him back to the past, to the long-gone days after his parents' death. His gaze reveals a mixture of thoughtfulness and inner strength hidden under the mask of ordinariness. But before he can fully immerse himself in his memories, he has some urgent matters to deal with. Instantly, his face contorts with irritation, and he turns around with determination, intending to finish off the annoying pursuer. The granddaughter doesn't let up, considering Ye Chung to be nothing special since he only restored the painting, but grandfather Kirui, having weighed his words, agrees that he was wrong. He realized with a keen eye that Ye Chung was not just a special person as he had previously thought. Grandfather Chishui confidently declares that this guy cannot compare to an ordinary master. His level is incomparably higher. He looks into the distance, his face tense, for behind Ye Chung's appearance lies a huge, fateful change. In his eyes, Ye Chung appears to be a figure of such power that other people seem like nothing more than insignificant insects to him. The granddaughter, despite her confusion, is already anticipating the appearance of a new, powerful master whose abilities are astounding. But grandfather Kirui corrects her again, firmly saying that Ye Chung is not a master, but something much more powerful, and despite his young age, he already has countless enemies. From a distance, a man in a cap watches Ye Chen, realizing that this is the very person that Mr. Shen is so desperately looking for. A greedy light comes into the pursuer's eyes. He didn't expect such a quick meeting and is already anticipating easy money. Ye Chung, as if sensing someone's gaze, abruptly turns the corner of the building. The pursuer stops, puzzled, trying to understand where his target has disappeared to so suddenly. He stands frozen in the middle of the alley, bewildered, as Ye Cheng simply disappears, as if vanishing into thin air. Suddenly, the man looks up, seeing only a fleeting trace of purple energy high in the sky, realizing that Ye Chung has slipped away like a ghost. Suddenly, as if out of nowhere, Ye Chung materialized in front of him, shrouded in a purple haze, his voice ominous as he asked a direct question. Just one threat, and the detective, trembling with fear, promises to tell everything, just to avoid the inevitable retribution. However, instead of naming the client, the detective begins a pitiful story about his difficult life, loans, and maternal support. Yi Cheng's patience runs out, his eyes flash red, and he furiously demands only one thing, the name of the one who hired him. In desperation, the detective reveals the reward amount, 1 million yuan, announced by a certain Mr. Shen Haiwa for Ye Cheng's head. The name Shen Haiwa makes Ye Chen feel thoughtful, as if an image related to someone's illness had flashed through his mind. The detective, seeing his thoughtfulness, asks in bewilderment whether Ye Cheng is really thinking about money at a moment like this, and not about his life. Ye Cheng, turning his back, gives the detective a final warning for his client. If you want to live, don't look for trouble. With a firm look, he walks away, leaving behind a stunned detective who has not yet fully comprehended what has happened. The detective, who had fallen to his knees, finally revealed the true reason. Shen Haiwa hired him because he couldn't track Ye Cheng's movements. The sun floods the modern metropolis with its rays, heralding a new turn in his mysterious story. Meanwhile, in one of the luxury apartments, a charming girl with lilac hair, preening herself, is inquiring about Ye Cheng's plans. Smiling, she announces that they will have to go shopping because Ye Chen urgently needs a new wardrobe. Ye Cheng, embarrassed by such pressure, tries to object, saying that it is not worth spending so much on him. But the girl easily dismisses his fears, assuring him that she will cover all expenses and resolutely leads him along. Their path leads to a huge shopping center, shining with light and abundance, where time seems to stand still. After many fittings, Ye Chung is transformed. In his new clothes, he looks completely different, elegant and attractive. The girl notes with admiration that if you dress him up, he becomes quite attractive. She seems to be seriously considering his personal life, offering to introduce him to someone. But Ye Chung decisively stops all her attempts, declaring that he does not need a girlfriend, and that is unlikely to change. She, with a sly smile, asks him a caustic question: has he really never known love? Yi Chang counters that the last 5 years have been spent solely on honing his skills. There simply hasn't been enough time for the girls. But long before that, in more innocent times, when his family was still intact, there lived in his heart one girl, Chu Shuren, the most beautiful of all in the school. Unable to control his overwhelming feelings, he wrote her a confession, and to his surprise, she responded. She was given a condition if he publicly, in front of the entire schoolyard, confessed his love to her. Then she would accept his feelings. He didn't know that it was a cruel trap into which he had fallen headlong, like a naive fool, and his feelings had been trampled. The realization of betrayal was bitter, but over the years came the understanding that all this was just a waste of time. However, her words, which touched on the past, still left an imprint, hurting his pride. She, trying to defuse the situation, good-naturedly reminds him that she hasn't had a serious relationship either, and that doesn't stop her from enjoying life. But Ye Cheng quickly changes the subject, reminding her of their original plans, to update his wardrobe. A smile lights up her face, and she happily agrees, looking forward to her shopping trip. And just when she seemed ready to dive into the world of fashion, their gaze fell on a familiar figure. Could it really be Sun? At this moment, their path is blocked by an old acquaintance, Sun, with a striking companion, who immediately begins asking questions about the girl's personal life. Ye Chung only casts an indifferent glance at them, full of unspoken emotions. But Song, upon recognizing Ye Chung, does not hide his surprise, noting that he has not changed at all. Ye Cheng only stared back dryly, maintaining a stony expression. Then Sun's companion glanced at Ye Chung and with a sarcastic smile uttered words that sounded like a blow. She remembers a certain loser, Ye Cheng, who once publicly confessed his love to Chu Shiran and was cruelly rejected. And with the same sarcasm he adds that out of shame he no longer appeared at school, bursting into malicious, intermittent laughter. At this moment, an ominous purple aura began to flicker around Yi Chung, foreshadowing something far more dangerous than just anger. The aura around his hand flares, as if warning that a line has just been crossed. The girl, frightened by what is happening, tries to take Ye Cheng away, begging him to leave everything as is and continue shopping. But then another couple appears, a man with a phone and a glamorous lady who seem to be connected with the offender. The woman in pink smugly declares that she always buys only the best, and the rest are paupers. Ye Cheng and the girl try to ignore these people as they continue their way past the windows of luxury stores. Inside the boutique, a girl offers Ye Chung to try on a suit, and a salesperson immediately approaches, admiring her taste. The seller names a staggering price, $360,000, which makes the girl's eyes widen. The girl waved it off in embarrassment, suddenly deciding that this color did not suit Ye Chung at all. But the same woman in pink appears again, reproaching them for being poor and lacking the means to make such purchases. The girl tries to justify herself in a choked voice, claiming that it's not about money, but that she simply doesn't like the color. However, the sarcastic lady continues her attacks, touching on the sore subject of the girl's brother, and she explodes, shouting, "You!" With a sly smile, the woman reminds him of her influential friend, Chu Shuran, hinting at the possible consequences. Her grin becomes even more malicious, anticipating the suffering of others. Unable to bear it, Yi Chung pushes the woman away, causing her to fall, his eyes flashing an ominous purple light. Chaos ensues. The woman writhes on the floor, her companion rushes forward, and the salesman and the girl are shocked. The girl freezes in horror, and the man next to her looks at Yi Chung in complete bewilderment. The woman, still on the floor, continues to make threats, citing her powerful friend and her boyfriend. Ye Chung, with a dark gaze and a purple light in his eyes, coldly said that he didn't care. Meanwhile, the man, raising his head, proudly declares his high position and annual income in the millions. In response to this, Ye Cheng only sighed deeply, as if preparing himself for the inevitable. But then, a figure enters the doorway with authority, whose appearance makes even the air around freeze. His menacing voice breaks the silence, accusing the insolent man of attacking Dr. E under the guise of his powerful corporation. The rich man who threatened Yi Chen turns pale when he recognizes the alien as the president himself, who, according to rumors, was supposed to be dying. The girl is puzzled as to how such an important person ended up here, fearing the worst if his visit is connected to Jun's support. On the faces of those standing before him, one could read only panic and the awareness of their own insignificance. But the powerful president turns around, and his nephew, in amazement, pronounces a long familiar name. And so, his hand tightly squeezed Ye Cheng's palm, and words of relief and respect flew from his lips. Ye Cheng himself seemed to take it in stride, but for everyone else it was a bolt from the blue. The rich man and his companion couldn't believe their eyes and ears. President Shen was respectfully addressing Ye Cheng, calling him Lord. The girl from the Jun family is shocked to the core, trying to understand how Yi Cheng, who appeared only recently, has already achieved such influence. President Shen sincerely apologizes for his rebellious son's misdeeds, promising that he wishes to make amends. Then, turning to his son, the president sternly orders him to immediately kneel before Ye Cheng. And so, with a deafening sound, the heir of the once arrogant family falls to the ground. He begs for forgiveness, his voice trembling with fear and humiliation, while Ye Cheng stares blankly at his fallen enemy. The rich man, who had seen Shen Menglong's pride for many years, could not believe that he had knelt down. All eyes are on Ye Cheng. Questions about his origins and true strength are in the air. Even Sun Yi, who was still trying to comprehend what had happened, froze in complete stupor. And as if nothing had happened, Ye Cheng took Sun Yi's hand and invited her to go buy new clothes, completely ignoring Shen Haiwa. The rich man watches in amazement as Ye Cheng seems to completely disregard the presence of President Shen himself. An enraged Shen Haiwa can't stand this treatment and kicks his son, while everyone around him is amazed at Ye Cheng's unprecedented impudence. Shen Haiwa, consumed by rage, takes out his wrath on his own son, warning that if Master Ye does not show mercy, he will spend the rest of his life in humiliation. Qiyong, shocked and frightened, tries to convince his father, hinting at his error, but Shen Haiwa only asks again in bewilderment. A sudden blow to his son's face, and Shen Haiwa, in a fit of rage, announces a complete break. Qiang and his father are expelled from Beiming Group for insulting the great master Yi. Shen Haiwa's face twists into a grimace of despair and rage. He curses fate for continuing to play games with him, but vows that he will not give up without a fight. Qiang, defeated and devastated, whispers of the end of all he had, while his companion is horrified by their recklessness, realizing the true strength of the one they dared to challenge. Meanwhile, Ye Cheng and his companion stroll carefree along a shopping street, where she, with a smile, reminds him of his strange priorities, buying clothes instead of paying rent. She expresses her deep appreciation for the modest, discounted purchases, unaware that Ye Cheng has millions in his pockets, and he only condescendingly allows her to pity him. The couple continues on their way, lost in their own thoughts, she in blissful ignorance, he in contemplation of the depths of human superficiality. Suddenly, their peace is broken by a mysterious figure who, ahead of Ye Cheng, addresses his companion directly, calling for her to stop. Shen Haiwa himself appears before them, no longer angry but with a sly smile and a retinue of assistants laden with gifts, offering to take them for a walk. Ye Cheng, alarmed by this change in behavior, asks with cold detachment what this man is really after. Shen Haiwa averted his gaze and hurriedly explained that his true target was not Ye Cheng, but the girl standing next to him. Pretending that his employees have behaved inappropriately, Shen Haiwa offers the girl modest gifts in an attempt to make up for his mistake through her. The girl, beaming with delight, admits that she dreamed of these things, but their price seemed prohibitive to her. Yi Cheng, with a shrewd smile, realizes Shen Haiwa's true motive. He is trying to get to him through Sun Yi, knowing that a direct approach will not work. Shen Haiwa stands frozen in anticipation, and when Ye Cheng calls his name, he immediately responds, showing complete submission. Ye Cheng, looking straight into Shen Haiwa's eyes, gives him one last chance, scheduling a meeting for tomorrow morning. Shen Haiwa, ecstatic at the chance he had received, couldn't stop expressing his gratitude, unaware that Ye Cheng was mentally reminding him of his absolute power over his fate. With a vow of eternal loyalty and a promise of his company's full support, Shen Haiwa leaves, leaving Ye Cheng alone with his thoughts. Meanwhile, Sun Yi, licking her wounds and watering flowers, desperately tries to convince her friend Shuran that everything that happened was Ye Cheng's doing. Meanwhile, Shuran, unperturbed amidst the general bustle, simply calmly states, "He's back. Come." She, of course, knows Shen Haiwa, a man of experience and respect, whose reputation in the business world is impeccable. But for such a person to grovel before a young man is only possible if the latter possesses incredible status or colossal strength. Chiron can't believe this version, because in her mind, Ye Cheng is just a surviving scum, a vagabond who could never make Shen Haiwa humiliate himself like that. Sun Yi, still terrified, tries to reach out to her friend, Chiron. What if this really is that same Ye Cheng? 5 years ago, the Yi family was just a shadow, under the protection of the powerful Chu family, of which Chiron is a part. And after these long years, she will not allow him to even come close to her level, let alone equality. It's getting dark, and we're transported to the Dadu residential complex, where the city lights are igniting a new chapter. In Yechung's apartment, his companion is delighted with his expensive purchases, constantly asking about his acquaintance with Shen Haiwa, as she could not even dream of such brands. Ye Cheng nods reservedly, his only concern seemingly being her satisfaction. Suddenly, the girl, with a hint of playfulness, asks if he is going to meet Xia Yuchue. This topic clearly irritates Ye Chen, and he waves it off, offering her to entertain himself while he goes off to watch TV. But the fun is quickly interrupted. On the screen, there is news about 2 male bodies found this morning in one of the city's mansions. Shocking information. One of the dead was Chen Zhengguo, the influential president of the Jiangcheng Chamber of Commerce. And not only him, his son, Chen Feng, is also dead, and the police have confirmed that it was a brutal and premeditated murder that will send chills down the girl's spine. Yi Cheng, however, is calm and even smirks slightly, philosophically noting that bad people always make enemies, and death is a common thing. Moreover, he claims with frightening candor that this is his doing, boasting of his ability to kill flawlessly and climb ledges. The girl, unable to believe it, waves it away in horror, considering his words a ridiculous joke, and then, trying to distract herself, goes off to try on outfits. Yi Cheng only chuckled vaguely, his confident grin giving way to a look of slight confusion, or perhaps awkwardness. Later, alone, Yi Cheng strolls through the streets at night, thinking that after buying medicine at the Chinese medicine pharmacy, he will have to do his evening practice. Suddenly, his thoughts were interrupted by someone's unexpected appearance, causing Ye Cheng to become wary. The officer, whom he hardly expected to see, greets him like an old friend. Her smile, full of hidden meanings, confirms that this meeting is not accidental and has its own reasons. Inside, Ye Cheng instantly realizes that this woman is a walking problem, and the best way out is to avoid any confrontation. He politely but firmly tries to leave, citing urgent matters, not wanting to get involved in her intrigues. But she doesn't back down, throwing a question after him that hits the mark, awakening dark memories in him. The words about the Ye family's curse instantly enveloped Ye Cheng in an ominous purple aura, his gaze becoming cold and dangerous. The officer continues her game, declaring her disbelief in his guilt, but her every word carries a hint of deep secrets. With a devilish smile, she pronounced the verdict on his family. The Yi family has gone into oblivion, causing his heart to clench. Unable to bear it, Ye Cheng grabbed her by the neck, demanding a direct answer, his angry aura pulsating around her. Realizing the danger, she trembles, acknowledging his superiority in martial arts, and quickly changes her tone, inviting him to talk over dinner. But Ye Cheng, without letting her go, coldly refuses, saying that he already has an appointment with another person. As Ye Cheng leaves, the officer is amazed to realize that at such a young age, he has already achieved perfection in ancient martial arts. Her thoughts are confused, because even after 5 years, such a level of skill seems completely unattainable. A question involuntarily arises in her mind. What did Ye Cheng experience during these mysterious 5 years? Meanwhile, after a tense meeting, Ye Cheng returns home to find completely different concerns awaiting him. On the table is a whole arsenal of herbs and roots, emitting a mysterious glow, ready to transform into something more. After waiting for Som to fall asleep, Ye Cheng decides to use the microwave to conduct his alchemical experiments. He looks at the result with surprise and slight disappointment. He managed to obtain only 5 shining pills. These 5 pills, contained in his palm, pulsate with energy, ready to give him new strength. Filled with new energy, Ye Cheng hurried out, but a familiar voice called out to him at the threshold. Having given a short explanation, he hurried on without even turning around. The door slammed behind him, leaving only an echo of morning silence. Inside, left alone, she thought about the strange man whose knowledge of medicine seemed at once absurd and surprisingly profound. A feeling of loneliness overcame her as her thoughts returned to the tragic death of the Yi family and the time that had inexorably flowed since then. There was a silent question in her eyes as to why such a misfortune could befall such a worthy and good family. Meanwhile, on the street, near a shiny car, a young girl was impatiently waiting for someone, attracting the curious glances of passers-by. The two friends, noticing her, immediately began to guess the purpose of her wait. Is she really waiting for just any man? Rich girls don't date regular guys, one reasoned, while the other agreed with his logic. Yi Cheng suddenly appeared and interrupted their argument, claiming that their judgments were wrong, which immediately attracted their interest. With a barely noticeable smile, Ye Cheng confidently stated that the girl was not waiting for them at all. One of them, offended by his insolence, exclaimed about his incredible popularity, while the other demanded an answer from Ye Cheng. Yi Cheng, with his eyes closed, as if contemplating the incomprehensibility of women's nature, was preparing to open their eyes. Then, with a half smile, he simply said that she was waiting for him. Their reaction was predictable, laughter and disbelief, as the idea of such a beauty waiting for Ye Chen seemed absurd to them. But then the girl, with a beaming smile, exclaimed, Ye Cheng's name, attracting everyone's attention. The surprised friends turned to Ye Cheng when the girl happily ran up and confirmed that she had been waiting for him. Ye Cheng merely gave a casual, "Oh, come on," to his stunned friends, enjoying their amazement. The girl happily grabbed his hand and Ye Cheng, apologizing for being late, led her away from the onlookers frozen in disbelief. When Ye Cheng asked if they were his friends, the girl noted with alarm that there were too many strange people in the area and the shocked friends only silently watched them go. But their path did not lie for a walk, but to the luxurious mansion of the Shen family, where important guests were awaited. Inside, an atmosphere of wealth and anticipation reigned as the head of the family and his close relatives prepared to welcome Ye Chun. On the table lay mysterious pills that seemed to be the only hope for the aging Shen. Looking at one of them doubtfully, the old man wondered, is it safe to take this at all? But Ye Cheng and his companions assured him that this was a test that Shen must endure in order to gain a new life. And he made up his mind, realizing that to achieve the full effect he had to take all 5 pills at once. Without further ado, with a determination bordering on desperation, he popped the mysterious balls into his mouth. A powerful wave of energy instantly pierced his body, causing his muscles to clench and his face to contort in pain. An incredible radiance erupted from his body, and a scream erupted from his chest as healing, or whatever, began to transform him. But the pain gave way to euphoria. A healing aroma filled every cell, and a warm stream of power enveloped him. He literally grew younger before our eyes, radiating vigor, while his companions and family watched the metamorphosis in amazement. Shen Haiwa was filled with deep gratitude and vowed to be indebted to Ye Cheng for the rest of his life. The handshake with Ye Cheng symbolized their agreement and the beginning of a new era for the Shen family. Ye Cheng waved away the excessive praise, viewing it as a simple, albeit extremely valuable, transaction. In exchange, Shen Haiwa offered him something more valuable, unoccupied real estate next to a large residential complex. Ye Cheng thought about it, seeing the house not only as a place to store valuable materials, but also as potential for other, more strategic purposes. It suddenly dawned on him, a businessman of Shen Haiwa's stature must have unique knowledge in the field of business analytics. He recalled the fate of his father's company, Tianjin Group, and how he had searched unsuccessfully for any information about it. After accepting the gift, Ye Cheng invited Shen to dinner, anticipating the opportunity to gain valuable information, to which Shen happily agreed. And, promising to get in touch, Ye Cheng left the mansion, taking with him not only the wealth but also the key to his past. These treasures, medicinal materials of incredible value, were collected with the utmost care. And so, in the midst of this abundance, Ye Cheng appeared, greeted by old Uncle Zhu, who enthusiastically pointed out his new acquisitions. Uncle Zhu proudly declared the unrivaled freshness and superior properties of the delivered materials, worthy of the most discerning craftsman. Yi Cheng, with a faint smile, appreciated the superior quality, acknowledging Uncle Zhu's skill and his unwavering reputation. The old man accepted the praise with respect, although his gaze still held a secret. The realization of the true value of these treasures flashed through Ye Cheng's mind, millions that would make anyone's head spin. He accepted the old man's kindness, but his mind was already searching for a way to repay, while wondering about the absence of his granddaughter. When Uncle Zhu mentioned that his granddaughter could make tea, Ye Cheng quickly declined, focusing on his own business. Instead of tea, a neatly folded piece of paper slipped from his hands. With a serious expression, Ye Cheng handed the old man a note, instructing him to pass it on to his granddaughter, or if she didn't understand, then to her master, emphasizing the extreme importance of the message. Confused, Uncle Zhu, having promised to carry out the order, wondered about the contents of the mysterious leaf, believing that it was payment. Ye Cheng then inspected the bags and asked about the places where alchemical furnaces could be found in Zhengzheng. A regular induction cooker was not suitable for his purposes. He needed something different, something for true alchemy. Uncle Zhu's surprise was genuine. Alchemy was a word that rarely came from anyone's lips in this world. Ancient legends about Chinese alchemists who disappeared 1,000 years ago surfaced in his mind. But Yi Cheng seemed to carry within himself the echoes of those very centuries, surrounded by the invisible shadows of the past. A realization struck Uncle Zhu. Could Ye Cheng really have been collecting these precious herbs for alchemy? His power back then was truly unimaginable. The excited old man immediately invited Ye Cheng to join a special auction that was scheduled to take place in 5 days. The word auction echoed in Ye Chen's mind, heralding new opportunities and challenges. As he said goodbye, Yi Cheng reminded Uncle Zhu to contact him and gave him the delivery address, finishing his business with anticipation for the future. The word auction echoed in Ye Cheng's thoughts, foreshadowing new opportunities and challenges. As he said his goodbyes, Ye Cheng reminded Uncle Zhu to contact him and provided the delivery address, wrapping up his business with anticipation of what was to come. After meeting Ye Cheng, a joyful Zixuan, unable to contain her emotions, hurried back to inform her grandfather of her return. The elder greeted her with a question that was stern and hinted at her past misdeeds. The girl, offended by such doubt, indignantly rejected the suggestion of her disobedience. But her grandfather reminded her of the previous incident with Ye Cheng, to which Zixuan stubbornly declared her master's superiority. The man accompanying her calmed the girl with a slight smile, hinting at Ye Cheng's remarkable abilities. Refusing to argue further, he handed the note Ye Cheng sent to the elder, surprising Zixuan. Trying to read the note, Zixuan only blinked in confusion, her childish mind unable to make out the mysterious symbols. She threw the paper down in irritation, complaining about the incomprehensible handwriting, but was immediately admonished and called to be serious. The man picked up the mysterious note, carefully examining every stroke of the hieroglyphs. His gaze rose, pierced by doubt. Was this message really meant for Zixuan? Suddenly, his eyes widened and a shadow of shock crossed his face. The handwriting, careless to an outsider, turned out to be evidence of a master's hand. The elder, noticing his reaction, tensely exclaimed Lao Ju's name, demanding an explanation. The shocked elder grabbed Lao Ju, insisting on an immediate meeting with the author of the note, but he only responded with bewilderment. While Zixuan was trying to understand the reason for such agitation, Lao Ju only shook his head, repeating, "You don't understand." And then he began his story, telling how, by chance, in his youth, the secrets of the Seven Yang technique were revealed to him. Thanks to her, his skills grew to unprecedented heights, reaching truly astronomical proportions. But such power came at a price, and over the years of practice he had come to know its dark side. Jixuan, who had been listening attentively, couldn't help but feel a growing sense of unease. Lao Ju reassured the girl, assuring her that her young cultivation base would protect her from any harmful influence as long as he was around. Lao Zhu, although he tried to remain calm, deep down he felt responsible for the safety of his family and desperately looked for a way to help. His anxiety grew as he realized the gravity of the situation and the threat looming over everyone. Meanwhile, the arrogant antagonist reveled in his victory, anticipating the complete collapse of the familiar world. The master's words echoed in Zixuan's mind, causing a premonition of irreversible changes. Off to the side, Ye Cheng was contemplating his next steps with a sly smile, prepared for any twists of fate. After leaving the scene, Ye Cheng went to the indicated address, slightly puzzled by the luxury of his new home. It was not just a house, but a whole mansion that exceeded all his expectations. He stepped inside and was met with a world of modern comfort and sparkling cleanliness. Every room exuded a cozy atmosphere, and Ye Cheng couldn't help but chuckle approvingly as he assessed the new house. However, as he walked past the funny drawing, he caught himself feeling a slight sense of awkwardness. Despite all the luxury, there was something inexplicable in the air, a kind of emptiness. He realized that such a spacious dwelling for one person seemed too empty. Yi Cheng thought how wonderful it would be to fill these walls with laughter, but he was immediately distracted by a message. Sun Yushu hastened to inform that she had to leave urgently for family matters and would not be back this evening. A slight anxiety settled in his heart for the girl he had already fallen in love with. Remembering his old, albeit modest, home, Ye Cheng felt a sharp longing for the former warmth that was so lacking in this luxury. Loneliness fell upon him like a heavy burden, plunging him into dark memories. Tomorrow was the anniversary of the tragic death of his parents, and this date burned in his soul. Rage broke through the pain, and he vowed to avenge the deaths of those who gave him life. He emerged from the depths of despair with only one goal: to personally punish the guilty and send them straight to hell. A deafening bell announcing the arrival of the medicine suddenly broke his concentration. There was a commotion at the entrance to the majestic mansion. A whole string of mysterious cargo had arrived. Confident in his plans, Ye Chang watched the unloading until his name was called, pulling him out of his thoughts. The unexpected call made him raise an eyebrow slightly, wondering who dared to disturb his privacy. Elder Ju stood before him with a young companion, offering his services, but Ye Chung seemed to be waiting for someone more important. Ye Chung's gaze darkened, catching sight of something more than just the old man who delivered the goods. And then a real ancient warrior appeared before him, exuding mysterious power, greeting him with respect. Yi Chen's usual confident grin blossomed on his face as he returned the greeting, hiding his true thoughts. With a sweeping gesture, he invited everyone into the mansion, playing the role of a welcoming but secretive host. Inside, however, the ancient warrior wasted no time and immediately asked, wanting to know Ye Cheng's identity. Before Ye Cheng could respond, the warrior fell to his knees, shocking everyone around him. "Jin Yuanming thanks you for saving his life," came a voice full of humility and deep gratitude. Elder Zhu and his young companion could not believe their eyes as they watched such an extraordinary scene. Looking at Ye Cheng, the warrior introduced himself, revealing his true title, Master Zichuan. To Ye Chen, all these regalia were just a trifle, but one very confusing question still arose in his mind. "Why do you call me Great Master?" he asked, puzzled, clearly embarrassed by such a high address. Yi Cheng's words left Qin Yuanming completely confused, causing him to doubt his basic knowledge. The embarrassed Ye Cheng quickly smoothed over the awkwardness by citing his ignorance of worldly classifications. Qin Yuanming, although still puzzled, the young man's words seemed to calm his inner turmoil. Meanwhile, outside of this conversation, the ancient secrets of martial arts were revealed, with all their complex hierarchy of levels and stages. Yi Cheng, whose name had already thundered among the transformation masters, towered above them like a mountain peak, with countless disciples' gazes directed towards it. His gaze slid along the invisible steps of the hierarchy, realizing his place, a rank that stood head and shoulders above the others. The world of martial arts, built from the realms of physical training, enlightenment, and the spiritual path, stretched endlessly, each of them divided into 9 levels, beyond which hid even more terrifying distances. Realizing their true strength, far beyond his initial imagination, made Ye Chung wonder about the number of such powerful masters. Even in the age of science and progress, true power still rested in the hands of those who mastered the ancient martial arts, for they understood that behind every system there was strength. The names of the great families, Zhu, Zhao, Lu, and Chen, were mentioned, each with its place in this unspoken hierarchy, with Chen, the weakest, having recently fallen victim to a bloody massacre, giving way to the Wang family. The memory of Zheng Guo's death threat against his grandfather made Yi Chung think about the inevitability of the coming retribution. But among all the families, it was Chu Shuran who left an indelible mark on his soul. Her humiliation had once branded him as a worthless person, and this brand had not been forgotten. The echo of the past returned, manifesting itself in the hunched figure of Yi Cheng, kneeling in the shadow of humiliation. However now, shrouded in a purple glow of power, Yi Cheng whispered Chu Shuran's name with a sinister grin, promising her the realization of her own insignificance. The old man watching him realized with horror how monstrous this newfound power could be. A silent question was reflected in his eyes. How much blood is on the hands of the one who holds such power? Suddenly, the scene changed, taking us to a busy street where Ye Chung, illuminated by the orange light of the street lamps, was annoyed to find that Song was ignoring his calls. His steps measured the rhythm of the evening city, carrying him away from past worries. Yi Chung's gaze was full of thoughtfulness, as if there was something more hidden behind the ordinary. Amidst the faceless silhouettes of passers-by, the simple thought of food crept into his mind, reminding him of his daily needs. But something caught his attention, causing his gaze to linger, full of a silent question. He recognized the familiar sign, and a wave of nostalgia washed over him. It was the diner of his school friend, Wang Yuan. Memories took him back, the delicious food, the frequent visits, the friendship with Wang Yuan, who was always there, even in the darkest days of his depression. However, upon entering, he found only empty tables and chairs. A strange silence had enveloped the place where life had once been in full swing. Despite the uneasy emptiness, Ye Chung, full of anticipation, confidently makes his usual order, adding a drink to it. But instead of the usual warmth, he is met with the sad gaze of Aunt Zhang, who is saying words of apology. His heart sank at the sight of the bandage on Aunt Zhang's face, and he realized with horror that something was wrong. Her words about being forced to move after decades of loyalty to this place hit Yi Cheng like a bolt from the blue. An anxious glimmer of insight flashes in his eyes, bringing together the disparate signs. The scratch on her cheek is no accident, and righteous anger begins to boil in Ye Chung's soul. Aunt Zheng tries to calm him down, but in vain. He can already see the unspoken pain in her eyes. At this moment, Wang Yuan appears nearby, offering Ye Cheng his order, as if trying to maintain the usual course of things. But Wang Yuan's face shows signs of a recent fight, and Ye Cheng can't believe that violence could happen in such a good family. Wang Yuan insists that Ye Cheng eat quickly and leave without asking for payment, with anxiety in his voice. Ye Cheng looks at the familiar kebabs, and in an instant, memories of his carefree childhood flood his mind. Suddenly, a chair falls with a crash. The idyll collapses, giving way to an ominous reality. Yi Cheng looks up and a realization hits him. This is not an accident, but a harbinger of disaster. The pupils of his eyes narrow, reflecting the growing tension and hidden power ready to burst out. Suddenly, a purple aura enveloped Ye Cheng, causing him to stand up to his full height, while chairs around him were shattered into pieces. He turns to the group of thugs who appeared out of nowhere and hears their surprised exclamations. His gaze becomes sharp and determined, foreshadowing imminent retribution for the insults. The leader stands in front, his smug smile only emphasizing his contempt for what is happening. At this time, Wang Yuan and Aunt Zhang, pale with fear, utter the name Tiger, realizing who they were facing. Tiger arrogantly grabs Wang Yuan by the collar, demanding payment for protection, and Wang Yuan only desperately asks him to leave them alone. Wang Yuan desperately tries to explain that this is just his humble deed, praying for mercy, but Tiger only grins mockingly, showing that he is well aware of the whole situation. He says with a sly grin that he knows about their escape plans and exactly where they are going to move. Tiger's sinister smile widens and his eyes glow with cold calculation, foreshadowing trouble. He pushes Wang Yuan away sharply, demonstrating his absolute power over him. The tiger bursts into arrogant laughter, confident that his victims will not go anywhere. Suddenly, a calm but confident voice is heard. Or maybe it's you who will leave. All eyes turn to the source of the voice. Ye Cheng stands before them, completely unperturbed. Ye Cheng looks at Tiger, a slight, cheeky grin playing on his face. Suddenly, Ye Cheng made a sudden movement and a purple glow flashed around him. In an instant, Tiger is on the ground, and his henchmen are screaming their boss's name in horror. Yi Cheng lowers his hand, and Wang Yuan and Aunt Zhang look at him in disbelief. Coming to his senses, Tiger roars in rage, his face distorted with anger and humiliation. With bloodshot eyes, he rushes at Ye Cheng, shouting curses and insults. But Ye Cheng easily blocks Tiger's strike, and he only spat out blood painfully. With one powerful thrust, Ye Cheng throws the massive tiger high into the air, stunning everyone. Tiger's minions look at their fallen leader in fear, realizing that they are facing something much more dangerous. Ye Cheng turns to face them, his gaze calm but filled with a powerful intensity. He gives them a short and clear order to get out before it's too late. An ominous purple glow erupts around Ye Cheng, and his eyes glow crimson, warning of the consequences. Against the backdrop of the greatness of his name, the world around him freezes in anticipation, and so, in a calm tone, he asks the fallen why they have knelt. Crippled and humbled, they prostrated themselves before him, admitting defeat. Ye Cheng, with a slight grin, waits for more convincing pleas. One of them, with a broken face, begs for mercy, asking only for freedom. In response to this desperate cry, Ye Cheng is enveloped in an ominous purple flame, highlighting his superiority. His gaze, blazing with a magical light, only strengthens the command, "Get lost." And, thanks to their liberator, they quickly disappear, taking with them fear and relief. Left alone amidst the devastation, Ye Cheng looks around the empty hall. He realizes with a hint of irritation that he should have ordered them to clean up the mess. Suddenly, two figures appear in the doorway and a familiar voice hesitantly calls his name. Their wounded faces light up with recognition as they realize who stands before them. Ye Cheng, a little embarrassed, asks if they really remember him. Aunt Zhang's joyful cry and Uncle Wang's embrace envelop him in the warmth of a long-awaited meeting. In response to their sincere emotions, he only quietly says, "Yes," and his face softens. Soon, we are transported to a majestic residential complex towering over the city. Ye Cheng enters the familiar apartment, calling out Song Yi's name, waiting for her answer. But something in the silence, or what he sees, makes his eyes widen in surprise. He holds a phone in his hands, explaining that he tried to call and found a wonderful restaurant for dinner for two. However, instead of the expected answer, only a counter-question filled with misunderstanding is heard. A man. His confidence crumples under her innocent yet penetrating gaze. She looks at him defiantly, as if trying to remember. The confusion grows, and both heroes are at a loss to guess who is in front of them. A sly smile lights up her face, and she mysteriously offers to test his memory. Suddenly, everything falls into place, and he, stunned, calls her name. She calmly explains her presence, immediately seizing the initiative and asking a counter-question. Ye Cheng's irritation reaches its peak when he admits his awkward situation. She just smirks, enjoying the moment of his confusion. Trying to distract himself, Ye Cheng casually inquires about the company's affairs, while the woman mentally notes how lived-in he is. However, her answer sounds alarming. Song Yi has disappeared, and no one knows where she is. Realization slowly penetrated Ye Cheng's consciousness, and his face darkened. Anxious thoughts whirl through his head. Have his enemies really gotten to Song Yi? He suddenly jumps up, ignoring her surprised cry. Her anger flares when he disregards her questions, pushing her away. His gaze becomes sharp and determined, aimed at an unknown target. She is amazed beyond measure and tries to understand his sudden behavior. But then an anticipatory smirk appears on her face. Her anger turns into an ominous aura. Ye Cheng has challenged her, and now he must realize it. She bites her lip thoughtfully, a spark of dangerous interest flickering in her eyes. Behind Ye Cheng's back, a conclusion is heard. He is valuable, but obstinate. Her resolve strengthens. This matter is everything to her, and the recipe is priceless, especially after Ye Cheng, seemingly the key himself, approached her first. But the vast expanses of Zhangzheng loom ahead, a labyrinth where searching for the elusive sun alone seems like an impossible task. Meanwhile, Ye Cheng, unaware of the depth of these thoughts, retreats into the cool of the night, his silhouette disappearing in the light of the lanterns. His face reveals a slight uneasiness, perhaps awkwardness from the past conversation or anticipation of new achievements. He quickly checks his phone, his gaze filled with apprehension. Has he missed something important? Is he late? While some are searching for their way in the boundless city, others are already deciding their destinies, becoming the city's gods of medicine. Far from its humble concerns rises the majestic Jianlong building, a symbol of power and influence. Inside, at a dizzying height, stands a figure, watching over the metropolis spread out below, whose streets hold many secrets. Suddenly, a ringing sound breaks the silence. An unknown number, known only to a select few, no more than 6 souls in the entire world. The mysterious voice on the phone makes him frown, a shadow falling across his face as he demands an answer. Who is it? A cold warning tone comes from the speaker. Its owner clearly does not tolerate interference and warns against trying to find him. And at that moment, Ye Cheng, as if summoned by an invisible force, was already taking another call, his voice sounding with unexpected persistence. I need help finding a person. His sneakers are firmly planted on the ground, while the conversation takes his thoughts somewhere far away. The requirement is categorical. He must have all the information within 5 minutes, not a second later. Meanwhile, his own phone holds memories of the call that marked the end of a 3-year wait. For 3 years, every day and every night, he eagerly anticipated this moment, this one call. And now that the wait is over, a sinister, anticipatory smile plays across his face. A moment later, a call to Ye Cheng brings the long-awaited news. Song has left the public place. Her red car has been spotted at the Fifth People's Hospital of Jiancheng. Ye Cheng, without waiting for a full report, decisively interrupts his interlocutor, refusing to go into unnecessary details. Now he knows enough. A confident smile flickers across his face. The goal is set, the path is clear. Against the serene sky, a steel giant rises, the Fifth People's Hospital of Jiangcheng, a place of hope and despair. In its corridors, full of quiet footsteps and the smell of medicine, she appeared, Song Yi, clutching her hands to her chest, her gaze full of uncertainty. A heaviness hangs in the air. Is there really no other way out? Sounds in her thoughts, foreshadowing the inevitability. Concerned parents, Song Yonggui and Zhang Yuanlun, engage in a desperate conversation, trying to find salvation, the last of their savings, a call to an influential but unloved relative. Song Yi's eyes reflect an internal struggle, pride and reluctance to ask for help from those with whom she barely has a connection versus the impending disaster. The mother's sudden exclamation cuts through the tension, "Young guy!" and fear freezes on the faces of both women. The uninvited guest is already close. And here he is, that same uncle, the second Song Yunfu, arrogantly throwing out a question about the urgency of the call, casually accepting words of gratitude. He and his wife, Dong Kaiju, the embodiment of ostentatious wealth and impudence, enter this temple of sorrow and hope as masters of life. Uncle, with a cigar in his teeth and wearing expensive glasses, looks at Song Yi with an appraising glance, and an unexpected interest flashes in his eyes. How she's matured and become prettier flashes through his thoughts. I never expected her to be such a beauty. This look, full of new, predatory surprise, lingers on her. How could I not have noticed this before? Everyone stands, a silent tension hanging in the air, while Uncle Song Fu rubs his chin, thinking about something of his own. He begins with feigned regret, dropping his hands. I'm sorry, but I don't have any spare money for your misfortune, he snaps harshly, leaving the parents in despair. His words are harsh, full of contempt. How are you going to return them? I need my money and I won't tolerate losing it. Tears welled up in Song Yi's eyes as she pleaded, realizing the cost of this refusal. But uncle, if we don't operate, Haoji might die. Then the aunt intervenes, a sinister thought flashing in her eyes, and she reminds her husband of the meeting with a certain Mr. Li and his son. With cold calculation, she continues, offering Song Yi as a profitable match so that their family can get a promotion. Uncle's face brightens instantly, and with a cynical grin he agrees, claiming that even the hot but not quite sane son Li would be quite suitable for Song Yi. Confused, Song Yi awkwardly denies looking for a partner, but her aunt, triumphant, already sees the goal achieved. This is wonderful. Auntie, like a temptress snake, whispers about salvation. Uncle's affairs are bad, but Halja's life is more precious than anything, and money could be obtained. And then, with a conspiratorial air, she adds that Mr. Li's son from the Hongshang Construction Company is just looking for a partner. Auntie's words fell upon Song Yi like a death sentence. Marry him, and your brother will be saved. The whole family is now counting on you. Her gaze darts around, and in the depths of her pupils there is numbness and horror. Married? Pressure from all sides falls on Song Yi's fragile shoulders, and her aunt's eyes are filled with absolute confidence. But then the uncle's voice cuts in, full of despair. He is not ready to sell his daughter, who has done so much for them. However, the aunt does not back down. Her gaze is cunning, and her voice is full of insidious logic. This is Song Yi's personal choice. If she wants, she will marry. And then she mercilessly hits where it hurts most, reminding us of 14-year-old Hao Jie, slowly dying in a hospital bed. You're his sister who watched him grow up. These words pierce Song Yi's heart, intensifying the feeling of guilt. Song Yi clenches her fists, a war between duty and despair within her. Her uncle hugs her, trying to calm her, but whispers that this might be their destiny. There is a victorious grin on my aunt's face, and she says triumphantly, as if the whole world had agreed on her idea, yes. Suddenly, a stranger appears, a vulgar but obviously wealthy man, with a smug smile announcing his claims. His appearance causes a storm of emotions. Everyone looks at him in complete bewilderment, not knowing what to think. Song Yi blinks in fear, trying to comprehend what is happening, her heart pounding wildly at the absurdity of the situation. And then, as if through a fog, she sees him, Yi Chung, standing in the distance and smiling lightly, as if he had come to save her. His confident demeanor is both hopeful and disconcerting, and his words about how it's too much for him, her boyfriend, make everyone freeze. Uncle and aunt are at a loss, not understanding what is going on, who this young man is, and why Song Yi hit him. Ye Chung, hugging Song Yi protectively, explains that she simply didn't want to burden them, causing the girl to blush. Ye Cheng's words cause a storm of indignation among the impudent aunt and her ally, who immediately demand an explanation, stunned by such audacity. Song Yi, confused, realizes that this crazy guy, despite his unexpected appearance, may be her only chance. She must play along. Song Yi, mustering all her courage, takes a step that will change everything. The girl leans over sharply and kisses him on the cheek, hoping that this gesture will convince everyone of their relationship. Their opponents, stunned, cannot believe their eyes. Is this guy really her lover? The man continues to press, questioning Ye Cheng's ability to pay for the expensive operation. However, Ye Cheng, with an unperturbed expression, declares that he has already paid for everything, surprising everyone with his confidence and generosity. Internally, of course, he panics. His bluff risks being exposed, but there is nowhere to retreat. And then Ye Cheng makes another loud statement, calling himself the famous Dr. Yi to whom the funds were allegedly transferred. The aunt, with obvious distrust, tries to catch him in a lie, doubting the existence of such a specialist. Ye Cheng feels the ground slipping from under his feet, but he keeps a calm face, preparing for the final throw. The laughter of his opponents echoes down the hallway as they openly mock his statement, dismissing him as a madman. But their fun is interrupted by an unexpected intervention, forcing them to fall silent. Two doctors, who appeared out of nowhere, strictly demand order and decency within the walls of the medical institution. One of the disputants, with horror, recognizes a familiar face in the senior doctor. Song Yunfu, instantly changing his tone, tries to flatter Dr. Chu, reminding him of their past acquaintance. Dr. Chu looks at him carefully, and a hint of recognition crosses his face. But then his gaze falls on Ye Chung, and the doctor's face lights up with shock and delight. At this moment, as if confirming the truth, the old doctor extended his hand to Ye Chen. Dr. Chu, full of respect, thanks Ye Cheng for his past help, openly acknowledging his merits. All the insolence instantly flies off the faces of the aunt and her ally, leaving only stunned disbelief. Despite his triumph, Ye Cheng feels uneasy, realizing how thin the line between bluff and reality was. Ye Cheng confirms his readiness with a slight smile, looking at Dr. Chu. Dr. Chu, clearly confused, tries to remember their last meeting as Ye Cheng extends his hand to him. And then it dawns on him. His memory helpfully throws up the moment of their first meeting in Shen's house. The aunt and her accomplice, stunned, ask why they were not informed of such an important connection. Ye Cheng, smiling slightly, said that at first he mistook the doctor for an ordinary swindler. But the aunt's impudent accomplice does not calm down, continuing to shower Dr. Chu with insults. Anger and distrust burn in his eyes. He refuses to acknowledge reality. Dr. Chu, tired of the noise, only dryly asked Ye Cheng who the stranger in front of them was. Dr. Chu's patience runs out, and he makes a decisive gesture to call for security. Strong men in uniform immediately take away the troublemakers. A mischievous sparkle flashes in the doctor's eyes. He suspects they have rabies and recommends isolation. The aunt and her accomplice desperately try to reach Ye Cheng, begging him not to believe them. Ye Cheng hugs Dr. Chu approvingly, noting his average skills but ruthless methods. Dr. Chu, slightly stunned by this assessment, only smiled awkwardly. The girl, with hope in her eyes, begs Dr. Chu to save her brother, promising any payment. And then something important dawns on Dr. Chu. Hao Shei's older sister is Dr. Ye. One of the doctors, full of determination, salutes Dr. Chu, taking responsibility for the operation. Dr. Chu turns to Ye Cheng with a smile, wanting to hear his final opinion. Receiving a nod of agreement, Dr. Chu jubilantly assures Ye Cheng that everything will be fine. But Ye Cheng suddenly began to write something down with great concentration, causing genuine bewilderment. Dr. Chu proudly declares that from now on, all the worries will fall on his shoulders, and there will be no more problems. The family stood there, shocked by the suddenness of the decision, as the cost of the operation was prohibitive. Meanwhile, Ye Cheng, enveloped in flickering light, appeared calm and unwavering. Sun's parents persuaded her to go home and rest while they waited at the hospital. But the father, unable to contain his overwhelming feelings, immediately turned to her with some personal question. His stern look and words caused obvious embarrassment and awkwardness in his daughter. The girl, overcome with shame, covered her face with her hands, trying to hide her confusion. Ye Cheng stood nearby, an unwitting witness to this family scene, listening to his father's absurd speech. With a slight smirk, Ye Cheng teases the girl, hinting at her father's overprotectiveness. An indignant son attacks Ye Cheng for eavesdropping, but he merely brushes her off, citing his keen hearing. He grins, suggesting that they not waste time arguing and go home by car. Suddenly, Sun freezes, struck by a terrible thought. She pawned her car to pay for her brother's treatment. And at that very moment, the car keys appeared in front of her, glittering in Ye Cheng's hand. He looks at her with a victorious grin, asking when she managed to pawn her transport. Her eyes widen in shock. These are her keys, the very ones she lost. Ye Cheng casually explains that he accidentally stumbled upon them at the pawn shop and, as her temporary boyfriend, took them. Overwhelmed with emotion, Sun throws herself into his arms, her body shaking with silent sobs of gratitude. A quiet "thank you" escapes her lips, barely audible among the sobs and shimmering particles around her. Ye Cheng hugs her back tenderly, gently stroking her head, trying to calm her trembling body. He looks down at the girl, and a thoughtful look crosses his face, foreshadowing new words to come. But Ye Chen's thoughts were already somewhere far away, carrying him away from the tender embrace into the cold unknown of the night street. The soft light of the headlights glided across the asphalt, cutting through the darkness as the car moved silently forward. The girl, sensitive to his changes, involuntarily said, wondering if she had become the cause of his anxiety by simply letting him into her house. Ye Cheng, with a slight smile on his lips, hinted at the secret, promising to reveal it only tomorrow. He even allowed himself to tease her, seeing the impatience in her eyes, hiding the true reason for his condition. But a sudden shudder ran through her, making the girl feel an inexplicable cold, as if the air conditioner in the car had broken down. Ye Cheng shuddered, his slightly closed eye catching something ominous in the growing silence of the night. A red glow, invisible to others, began to pulse around him, foreshadowing imminent danger. Without further explanation, only with firmness in his voice, Ye Cheng gave a sharp order, demanding the girl's unquestioning obedience. Confused, she only managed to say his name questioningly, seeing him reaching for the door, not understanding his actions. But he was already in action, throwing open the door, preparing to leave the safe haven of the car. In one breath, he laid out a clear plan of salvation, instructing her in detail how to avoid the coming disaster. Whether by instinct or trust, the girl hastily agreed while Yi Cheng jumped out of the car without hesitation. His words echoed in her mind, a promise of protection and salvation no matter what. With a dull thud, his feet hit the asphalt, marking the beginning of the inevitable confrontation. He stood alone in the middle of the silent street, watching the car drive away. Fighting alone wasn't always the best path, but right now, Ye Chen had no other choice. He was thinking about the benefits of having allies. His eyes flashed an ominous red light for a moment, reflecting determination and hidden power. And from the darkness, slowly emerging, two figures appeared, heading towards a car parked nearby. One of them, a commanding man, glanced haughtily at the car, declaring that the real threat was lurking somewhere else, perhaps right in front of him. Focus on a powerful man whose gaze is drawn to the name that resonates after so many years, taking his thoughts back 5 years. Ye Chun, on the other hand, maintained a calm expression, his words sounding like an accusation, recalling the past and issuing a direct challenge. A haughty grin spread across the older man's face, and he disdainfully dismissed the very idea of Ye Chen as a serious threat. Then, on command, as if from nowhere, the figure of Huang Qing appeared before him, engulfed in an ominous crimson glow. The ground beneath him shook and cracked as Huang Qing took his first step with fierce determination. His eyes glowed with a mad red fire, and a predatory grin was frozen on his face, foreshadowing imminent reprisal. With a wild cry of, "Die!" Huang Qing rushed towards Ye Cheng, his attack lightning fast and merciless. But Ye Cheng remained calm, parrying the deadly blow with just a slight movement of his hand, while the other subordinates were already approaching. The next moment, a powerful impact was heard, and the air around them was filled with flashes of mystical energy. The look of rage on Huang Qing's face turned into a grimace of shock and disbelief as the blow hit its target. Ye Cheng, without flinching, uttered only one word with a slight mockery, "Weakling," throwing the enemy away. Huang Qing's body collapsed limply. His attack was in vain, and his strength was exhausted in an instant. Ye Cheng snapped his fingers slightly, as if brushing away a speck of dust from his clothes. A man standing nearby, seeing the defeat, turned to Ye Cheng with disdain, calling him a worthless person. But Ye Cheng, enveloped in a red glow, only smirked, challenging. His fate would not be so simple. The older man's gaze became more interested. The blood of the evil spirit? Flashed through his thoughts, recognizing the hidden potential of the young man. And then he, Lord Yao Jing, squared his shoulders majestically and declared that he would personally finish off Ye Cheng. Ye Cheng, without showing the slightest fear, merely retorted with a tired expression, "You're talking too much nonsense." The older man's eyes flashed with an evil fire, and he finally revealed his role in the tragedy that befell Ye Cheng's family 5 years ago. Huang Qing, defeated by one blow, lay on the ground, and the two figures, shrouded in the darkness of the night, continued their deadly duel. Despite this sudden revelation, Yi Cheng maintained a confident facade, but deep down, something was troubling him. The old man, on the other hand, was full of arrogance as he offered Ye Chen a humiliating deal. Powerful energy flowed from his body, and an ominous promise hung in the air to take the place of the fallen. Ye Chen grasped the essence of his words, feeling that the old man was underestimating his strength. But then the space distorted, and terrifying creatures burst out of the shadows surrounding the battlefield. An illusion, a weakness. Yi Cheng greeted their appearance with a cheeky grin, as if it was his own entrance. The tension grew, and the old man, realizing what was happening, felt a chill of horror run down his skin. "Master level," flashed through the old man's mind in shock. Ye Cheng, understanding his shock, promised that the old man's death would not be easy. The old man could not come to terms with reality, because he himself had spent years and wealth to achieve mastery. His hand trembled involuntarily, betraying his inner fear of the unthinkable. "Am I shaking?" he whispered to himself, feeling such deep terror for the first time. He forced the words out through clenched teeth, trying to hold on to the last of his pride. He acknowledged Yi Cheng's phenomenal achievements, but at the same time pointed to his own immeasurable experience. Ye Cheng, however, grinned calmly and playfully repeated the word, "break." Enraged, Yao Jinggu, forgetting his fear, rushed into battle, vowing to finish off the impudent youth. His fist, enveloped in shining energy, cut through the air with incredible speed. A powerful blow shook the ground, raising clouds of dust and energy. But Ye Chun's eyes only reflected the lightning-fast attack, as if he could see every nuance of it. And so, the deadly duel between the two masters flared up with renewed vigor, where every blow could be the last. The battle raged like a wildfire, with each warrior a mere spark in the whirlwind of the elements. Blades crossed, flesh was torn, and even an experienced opponent could not avoid bleeding wounds. Ye Cheng dodged the deadly blows like a shadow, but every block he made came at a cost. The master villain, smirking contemptuously, mocked the young man, saying that his thin hands would not last long. Indeed, Ye Cheng's arms were already covered in numerous cuts, evidence of a merciless fight. But in response, Ye Cheng only smiled, acknowledging the enemy's strength but not showing any fear. "I underestimated you," came from his lips. "But what should I do with such trivial scratches?" The villain seethed with anger, seeing only stubborn insolence where there should have been fear. "I broke my fingers in that attack," he growled, bleeding himself, his rage mingling with pain. Ye Cheng, shrouded in a dark aura, only looked at the enemy with a keen gaze, as if he had seen through his true weakness. "What did you mention there?" he asked, and the darkness around him thickened, taking on the outlines of eerie shadows. With a barely noticeable predatory smile, Ye Cheng said his opponent's name, Yao Qinggu, and with a powerful lunge he rushed into the attack, his eyes burning with the promise of a quick and bloody retribution. With his back to the approaching darkness, the villain prepared for the decisive moment, confident of his victory. He mocked Ye Cheng, who seemed to have thoughtlessly rushed straight into the trap by attacking in midair. "This is my chance. He's too inexperienced," the villain rejoiced, seeing easy prey before him. He concentrated all his ki into one crushing blow, intending to wipe the enemy off the face of the earth. "Ha ha ha, you brat, let's see how you fight without legs," he exulted, anticipating victory. But suddenly, his face was distorted with horror, and his eyes widened in disbelief. What he attacked was just an illusion, and the real Ye Cheng, glowing with a crimson aura, was already looming over him, ready to deliver a fatal blow. And so, this fatal blow, shrouded in a crimson aura, took the form of a terrible, hovering demon. A huge shadow covered the defeated enemy, ready to swallow him whole. But Ye Cheng, as if toying with his prey, only smiled mockingly when the fog of battle cleared. The real Ye Cheng, surrounded by a shimmering blue aura, was already standing over the broken enemy, holding him in complete control. The unfortunate man's eyes showed only disbelief and agony, his words stuck in his throat from the shock he had experienced. Slowly but surely, Ye Cheng's hand moved towards his head. Instantly, he grabbed his opponent by the hair, forcing him to raise his face, distorted with pain. And here they were, face to face, Ye Cheng's cold-blooded grin and the frozen horror in the old man's eyes. Ye Cheng knelt down, his grip tight, as if he was about to rip the answers right out of his soul. The enemy desperately clung to the illusory hope of salvation, trying to bargain for his life. But Ye Cheng only narrowed his eyes, his patience reaching its limit. He pinned his enemy's head to the ground, making it clear that the time for games was over. Through pain and humiliation, the old man finally began to speak, revealing valuable information. Ye Cheng recalled the events of the past, and the ominous shadow of the Dragon Lord appeared behind him. Without wasting any time, Ye Cheng stomped on the fallen man's chest, demanding that he reveal his enemy's true name and location. The young warrior looked closely at his enemy's face, trying to understand whether he was lying or whether he really didn't know something. The defeated man grinned, his gaze full of fatalism and despair, mixed with a touch of madness. "I am only a pawn," he croaked, "and I do not know the true name of the one whom the whole world worships. I have never met him in person," he added, his voice trembling with fear, "and I dare not even know where he is." Ye Cheng frowned, his eyes filled with deep doubt and a premonition of a new, even more dangerous battle. Ye Cheng, filled with rage and bewilderment, demanded to know why his family had been targeted by this brutal attack. The exhausted opponent struggles to answer. Master Long was looking for something that led him to Ye Cheng's family. The image of the mysterious crystal given to him by the old man appeared in Ye Cheng's mind, and his gaze became thoughtful. Meanwhile, a scarlet gleam flashes in his eyes, and a hum grows inside, foreshadowing the coming explosion of emotions. But even on the threshold of oblivion, the enemy's bloody face is distorted by a malicious grin. Through the pain, he croaks out chilling words, "My people have already reached your friend." The malice in his eyes is mixed with death throes, ominously foreshadowing trouble. Ye Cheng's foot presses down hard, symbolizing merciless retribution, and a drop of blood stains the ground. Ye Cheng is blinded by rage, his gaze is piercing, and someone else's blood runs down his face. He rises above the fallen body like a vengeful ghost of the night, leaving only destruction in his wake. The city seems to be immersed in a peaceful sleep, but behind the facade of calm new threats lurk. And at that very moment, a girl runs through the night streets, her heart pounding with anxiety. Faster, she whispers, feeling fear urge her on, every step feeling like her last. An obsessive feeling of being followed takes hold of her, forcing her to turn around, but behind her there is only a frightening emptiness. She rushes into the shelter, but the echo of ominous voices already meets her, penetrating every crack. There is no time to rest, not even for a moment. The awareness of danger strikes with renewed force. There was only one thought in her mind, to get to Ye-chung's room, where she hoped to find at least a drop of protection. With trembling fingers, she dials the number, her last hope for salvation in the hands of strangers. In a breaking voice, she calls out her address, pleading for help as the clock ticks down the final moments. The night sky above the apartment complex holds its secrets, but a spark of hope flickers in one of the windows. In the flickering light of the night city, shadows bow to an invisible power. A cold order breaks through the mask, leave no one alive, but act cleanly, without witnesses. And so, sinister figures in strict suits dissolve into the night, their only goal, extermination. Meanwhile, in one of the rooms, a fragile girl tries to scream for help, her voice trembling with fear. The eerie silence on the other end of the line echoes in her heart, deepening her despair. Time is running out. The footsteps on the stairs are getting closer, foreshadowing the inevitable. But somewhere far away, in another place, a firm hand brings the phone to the ear. A short, "okay," sounds like a sentence. The girl doesn't understand why the conversation ended so quickly. Was it really a false hope? Tears well up in her eyes as she pleads again, calling out to anyone who can come to her aid. Fates intertwine beneath the vaults of the Jinglong Tower, a silent giant that towers over the city. In its depths, a powerful man looks out over the city, a mysterious map in his hand, a question in his eyes. Suddenly, his face contorts into a grimace of rage, an aura of fire and destruction enveloping him. His fists clench, every muscle tense, his anger shaking the very atmosphere of the office. His subordinates stand before him, bowing in submission, ready to carry out any order. His gaze, full of ferocity, is directed at those who must bear responsibility for their failure. However, even at this moment, his thoughts are occupied not only with revenge. Tomorrow are the final negotiations with 6 powerful families. One of his agents, his face hidden by a mask, looks on with cold, calculating determination. The master's eyes reflect a ruthless will that knows no mercy. The mobile phone crackled in his hand. A bolt of lightning surrounded his figure, and a ghostly beast appeared behind him. Let everyone know, Ye Lingtian and Jiang Long will not tolerate disobedience. And as if in response to his words, the door swings open with a bang, heralding a brutal invasion. The villain, with a sly grin and sharp, beast-like teeth, anticipates his prey. Their voices echo through the empty corridor, filled with scattered papers, and their arrogant words promise swift retribution for any attempt at disobedience. Deep in the room, trapped, the girl senses them approaching, and horror grips her heart. Her eyes, wide with fear, catch every rustle, and the unknown squeezes her chest with a chilling embrace. Suddenly, her gaze falls on something mysterious, a door shrouded in a strange, unearthly glow. Thoughts whirled through her head, worrying her with the question, what is this power, and what does Ye Chung have to do with it? Behind the door, which seemed to be securely locked, ominous voices are heard, having discovered her hiding place. One of them, with a phone in his hand, holds back his comrades who are rushing forward, frozen on the threshold of a new order. The situation has changed, comes a voice from the receiver, full of a new directive: we must not kill her. But he immediately adds that no one forbade them to play with the victim, and the faces of the villains light up with anticipation. One of them, with undisguised lust, rushes to the door, grinning, "Beauty, I'm already here." The fist clenches, preparing to unleash its full force on the obstacle. A powerful blow shakes the corridor, aimed straight at the heart of the wooden barrier. But imagine his surprise when the blow did not bring the expected result. The door stood untouched, as if it had absorbed all the energy of the attack. Confusion grips the others, and another mercenary volunteers to try his hand, not believing what is happening. One of them, with a more subtle perception, senses an extraordinary energy emanating from the door. Suddenly, he is enveloped in blue flame, burning and alive, with ghostly faces dancing in its vortex. A cry of pain erupts from his chest as the mystical fire begins to consume his body.